Welcome to the Goodyear City Council meeting. We're excited to have you be a part of this important public process. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to address City Council on both non-agenda and agenda items. The agendas and the speaker request cards are located on the tables outside of council chambers. You must fill out a speaker card in order to address the City Council. Please hand in your completed card to the city clerk before the start of the meeting. If the meeting has already begun, please hand it to any city staff. You may also check the "I do not wish to speak" option on the card. This allows you to still voice your opinion on an item on the record without having to speak. In accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, please contact a city staff member if you need any assistance. Public comment on a non-agenda item will take place during the citizen comment portion of the evening. These are items that don't appear on tonight's formal agenda. The city clerk will call your name when it's time for you to speak. At that time, please approach the podium and tell us your name for the record. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes, and there is a timer visible from the podium. When the light changes from green to yellow, your time is coming to an end. When the light turns red, your time is up. Note that you may also choose not to speak if other speakers before you have said what you wanted to say. Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear City Council meetings stream live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and online at goodyearaz.gov. Follow the city's social media pages so you don't miss out on all that's happening in Goodyear. Thank you for coming to this meeting and being an active part of your city. And remember, it's a great time to be in Goodyear.
I'd like to call the regular meeting to order for May 23rd, 2022. The city clerk, please read the roll.
Let the record reflect that all members are present.
Can everybody please join Vice Mayor Hampton in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, I thank you for gathering us here tonight, Lord. I just want to thank you for the city of Goodyear and for just being able to come together. I ask for wisdom in making decisions tonight, Lord, and also throughout our time here on council. I want to pray for our military, our fire, police, and our staff in Goodyear, and also a special remembrance as Memorial Day is coming up to those that gave their lives for us, for our freedoms. I thank you, Lord, for your guidance and for the blessings that you've given our city, Lord. And I just, once again, just pray for wisdom as we make decisions. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Now is the time for citizens who would like to address the city council on any non-agenda item within the jurisdiction of the Goodyear City Council. Any speaker cards?
Yes, Mayor, we have 2 speaker cards. The first one is from Brian McPhee.
Brian McPhee, 16850 West Pierce Street. Thank you for having me speak.
Okay, before you start, council can listen to comments and may take any of one of the following actions. Respond to criticism, request that staff investigate and report the matter, request the matter be scheduled on a future agenda, and each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The yellow light will let you know when you have 20 seconds left to speak. Before you begin to speak, identify what you have done already. So go ahead.
Okay, I'm specifically referring to the property that's north and south of the subject property in items 11 and 12. I'm not referring to 11 and 12, talking about the properties north of that and south of that. I'm sure you're all familiar with the map. You know, I got this on page 232 of your PDF file, which is, you know, significantly larger than the agenda you handed out. It just shows the rental projects in Goodyear. I'm specifically referring to the projects that are north of Canyon Trails Boulevard, south of the canal, east of Cotton Lane, all the way up to the Canyon Trails property. It's my understanding that the planning board does not do an economic analysis or financial analysis, you know, for any possible impacts. I'm stunned. No cost benefit analysis. You know, who are the winners? Who are the losers? You know, these subject properties, these projects you're talking about, they're rental units. And, you know, in this case, they're rental units that are butting up the Canyon Trails. I could cite you academic study after academic study, all peer-reviewed, that will tell you that when you remove open space, there's a disamenity effect. Property values go down to the abutting properties. I'll refer you to Buren, 2005. It was done actually for the city of Scottsdale. Open space has an amenity value of anywhere from 12 to 20%, and now you're about to remove that. Moreover, I could cite you studies that show when you build apartments that abut to residential communities, there's a negative impact on property values. I'll refer you to Rawlings, 2002. I'll refer you to Song and Cap, 2005. In both cases, and I quote, the amenity effect that they both state that the single value housing prices tend to fall with proximity to multifamily units. In economic jargon, we're calling that a disamenity. Now, based on my understanding of Chapter 3 of the general plan, I know there's nothing I'm going to say today that's going to make you reverse decision. But I would think that as elected officials, it would be incumbent on you to at least tell the residents of Canyon Trails that when these projects go in, that their property values are going to go down. You know, and moreover, the reason they're going to go down is probably because your philosophy is that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Thank you.
City Manager, do you have the information you need to respond to those comments?
I believe it actually is one of the upcoming agenda items,
Yeah,
11 and 12.
That's what it sounded like. It should have probably been handled during the agenda item, so.
No, it's the properties north of that agenda item.
There are
Okay.
South of that agenda item.
multiple projects. You're inundating Canyon Trails.
So they're talking about a different piece.
Okay.
So you'll,
Okay, we're clarified
Okay.
then. Okay.
all right,
Thank you.
second. You got another one?
The next speakers, I have Sarah Betts, Jacob Harding, and Emma Barber.
I know. Since we have an issue.
Before you start, council will listen to comments and may take one of the following actions. Respond to criticism, request that the matter be scheduled on a future agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. I assume you're going to be the speaker for the group?
There
You got
are
more?
three of us.
There's 3 of you?
So
All
each
right.
one gets 3 minutes.
How does that work? You're going to have 3 speakers?
Did they fill out one card? It's up to the chair. It's usually 3 minutes per speaker.
That's fine. The yellow light will let you know when the 20 seconds are left to speak. Before you begin to speak, identify yourself. Be clearly stating for the record your name and if you're a Goodyear resident. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Pizzillo and member of the council. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Sarah Betts, and I recently graduated from Estrella Foothills High School. I have been a member of the Goodyear community since my family moved here in 2013. I proudly call Goodyear my home. As a recent graduate and senior student on the student council, it has been our duty to work very similar to you as a city council and represent our peers. Today, my peers and I would like to exercise our rights as voting citizens and contributing members of the Goodyear community to make a proposal regarding our school entrance at Estrella Foothills High School. My friend, Jacob Harding, fellow student council senior member, will explain. Thank you.
Hello, I am Jacob Harding. I'm a Goodyear resident and would like to propose to the city a simple request that represents 1,206 students and families associated with Estrella Foothills High School. The safety of our school entrance has received a much-needed upgrade due to the city's added stoplight near our school entrance on Estrella Parkway. This stoplight has increased safe traffic flow before and after school, and the EFHS Wolfpack is grateful for the help and solution the stoplight gave. However, the stoplight gave us something we didn't expect. It gave us Rustler Road. This road named through the EFHS community for a loop, and discussions at school circled around why. Thanks to some research on procedures and proposals, our class realized we could possibly do one last thing for our alma mater and our community. I would like to introduce Emma Barber to go over our proposal.
Good evening, Mayor Pizzillo and members of the council. My name is Emma Barber, as introduced, and it's been a while since I've been here, as my mom used to be on city council, Jen Barber. So it's lovely to see everyone tonight. When my family and I moved here to Goodyear, we were able to take advantage of many opportunities within our city limits. Besides schoolwork, volleyball, track, I have been able to learn to fly at Goodyear Airport and see the great beauty of our city and all it has to offer. I would like to propose to City Council the road currently called Rustler Road to be changed to Wolfpack Way. This new name was crafted by our senior class, and with unanimous senior vote and representing 1,206 Wolfpack families, we, the graduated class of 2022 at Estrella Foothills High School, would like to present a request and proposal to the City Council to rename the road. Please rename Rustler Road to be Wolfpack Way. This represents our pride in our school and its place in the community of Goodyear. It is the only road going into EFHS, and it borders City Parkland, and there isn't another commercial building for this road. The name change to Rustler Road in the Estrella Community Ranch would be a culminating event for our senior class as we survive schooling through a pandemic and fighting our senior class. Would be a culminating event for our senior class as we survive schooling through a pandemic and finding our new places in the world. The community would benefit from not confusing the lower Rustler Road with the upper version due to the name change, and the school would benefit also to have increased recognition and community pride. Thank you for your time and effort you have given to our community, and we appreciate being able to present this evening and be heard. On behalf of the Buckeye High School District and Estrella Foothills High School, we appreciate our time in front of you this evening. Thank you.
No, thank you. Will, do you have the information of contact person to see what is actually needed for that to happen?
We do, and I think we'll actually have one of our directors get with them before they leave this evening to make sure we exchange some contact information.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming forward. Will the Deputy City Clerk please read consent agenda items 1 through 10 by title only?
Number 1, approval of minutes. Number 2, recommend approval of a new Series 12 restaurant liquor license for Chuck E. Cheese, number 3222, located at 13371 West McDowell Road in Goodyear. Number 3, authorize the city manager or her designee to execute the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management Cooperative Agreement. Number 4, approve the minor land division for Goodyear Site 12. Number 5, approve the issuance of a permanent drainage easement agreement to the El Cedro Homeowners Association. Number 6, approve Amendment 1 of the agreement with Buckeye Water Conservation and Drainage District, BWCDD, for repairs and improvements to the Bullard Wash Outfall, project number 60073, and the related budget transfer. Adopt resolution number 7, adopt resolution number 2022-2245, designating the chief fiscal officer for officially submitting the fiscal year 2023 expenditure limitation report to the Arizona Auditor General. Number 8, approve the map of dedication for JDA Commerce Center, subject to stipulations. Number 9, approve the final plat of Las Ventanas, Parcel 1, subject to stipulations. And number 10, approve the final plat for Las Ventanas Parcel 2, subject to stipulations.
Thank you. Does anyone on the council wish to remove an item? Seeing none, can I have a motion and a second to approve items 1 through 10? Second. Did you have that? Okay, great. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. There are 4 public hearings on the agenda. The first public hearing item is the northeast corner of Cotton Lane and Van Buren Street minor general plan amendment. Going to open the public hearing. And please introduce yourself there.
Good evening, Mayor Pizzolo and Council. My name is Christian Williams, Senior Planner here with the City of Goodyear. Pull up my presentations. Tonight I have, whoopsie. All right, here we go. Tonight I am here before you this evening with a request from Andy Yokums. One is to conduct a minor general plan amendment on 31 acres of property within the city, and the other is to conduct a rezoning of 31 acres of property within the city, and I prepare to present these under one presentation. So the overall property we will be discussing today is approximately 31 acres and is located in central Goodyear in Canyon Trails on the northeast corner of Cotton Lane and Van Buren Street. The property is within the general plan land use category of business and commerce, and I'll touch on that on an upcoming slide. The property is also currently zoned Canyon Trails 1 PAD with an underlying zoning of commercial. That property is located in this area on the map right there with the star on it. So zooming in a little closer, you can see that the project is in red. The parcel is south of a vacant portion of Canyon Trails, which is zoned MF12. It is north of Van Buren Street in a vacant parcel zoned MF24 for the Estrella Springs and Suncrest Vista. It is west of an existing Canyon Trails greenbelt that's about 75 to 100 feet in width. That is to remain. It is east of the Cotton Lane frontage road and the Arizona State Route 303 loop. It is also just east of an RID property that contains a water facility. Of note, this property is not located within the Luke Air Force Base DNL or noise area. The first request of the applicant is a minor general plan amendment for the northeast corner of Cotton Lane and Van Buren Street. The applicant is requesting a general plan amendment for the 31 acres, and that will modify this area from business and commerce land use to neighborhoods to match the existing neighborhoods designation that currently exists to the east. This would permit the applicant to construct residential dwelling units that are less than 18 or an MF18 equivalent. For a little bit of context on that, business and commerce does allow residential, but at higher densities. It also allows for some commercial and in some cases business park uses. The companion rezoning that you'll see for this today, the applicant is requesting a density of less than that, less than 12, so that would require a general plan amendment. For a brief history on the Canyon Trail zoning, and I'll abbreviate that, the map in the middle is from 1999, and the project was part of Canyon Trails, or is part of Canyon Trails Phase 1 PAD. Again, the underlying zoning for this property is commercial. Various amendments to that zoning map have occurred to date. The most significant of which was the increase of the Canyon Trails Town Center. So if you'll recall, original Canyon Trails had about 146 acres of commercial. If this property is rezoned to residential, there will still be a net positive of 11 acres of commercial remaining within Canyon Trails. And this map highlights those changes that have occurred. Additionally, I will note that west of Canyon Trails, at the northwest corner of the 303 in Van Buren, there is a vacant property owned by the state of Arizona, trust land. That is about 58 acres in size, and that has a business and commerce designation for it as well, which would allow, again, for business parks, commercial, or high-density residential. As it relates to multifamily in the area of Goodyear between McDowell Road on the north, future SR 30 on the south, Perryville on the west, and Bullard on the east, there are 8 established multifamily communities. 1 is for the baseball team, 5 are traditional garden-style apartments, and 2 are single-family rentals. Those are shown in orange. In purple, there are 8 under development or recently completed. 2 are garden-style, 6 are single-family rental. And shown in yellow, there are 21 zoned for multifamily. 9 are likely single-family rental or townhouse style. 9 are likely to be garden, and 2 are part of the city center, which will likely see a rezone, one of which you'll likely see today. Shown in blue are the 4 developments you'll likely see in the future, including 2 today, and the site of today's rezoning is located right here with the star. I'll be very brief on this map because you all have seen it before. Access at Van Buren and the SR 303 are limited. The nearest diamond interchange or way that you can get on and off the freeway is down at Yuma. Both of those corners have significant commercial zoning and entitlements for them. So the access at Van Buren is limited, which has resulted in many rezoning requests. The applicant is requesting a zoning change from the current PAD to a PAD district with an underlying zoning of MF12 with a PAD overlay to facilitate the development of a multifamily community. That community would follow the MF12 design guidelines and regulations with the exception of those items amended in the PAD overlay. The use of the PAD overlay in this case is justified as there are some unique circumstances that are found on this property. One is that it is adjacent to the Arizona State Route 303 loop. There is a large green belt to the east of this property, approximately 75 to 100 feet, that will remain intact. It is adjacent to an established master plan community, and to the north of it, there's an existing multifamily community also zoned MF12. The property also borders what will be a greenbelt trail that goes from the RID property on the north. They will construct that through their property, and ultimately that greenbelt goes down to approximately Lower Buckeye Road. I'll briefly go over some of the items in the PAD overlay. So it allows additional height to the MF12 to allow for pitched roofs that will be considered similar in nature to a parapet roof. Heights of that would be roughly exactly the same as allowed in the single-family designations. On the north and adjacent to existing MF12, the PAD overlay allows for a setback reduction, and the PAD requires that the owner increase the setback along Cotton Lane to add that green belt along Cotton Lane. The property owner will also be required to put a screening wall adjacent to the RID canal. Right now there's a gated fence there. They would need to screen that in that mechanical equipment from view. It clarifies that dumpsters should be more than 20 feet from residential buildings, and it codifies enhanced design guidelines. I'll point out that the renderings on the screen today do not meet those guidelines, but they will need to include color, other than simply varying shades of gray, and they'll have to add vibrancy to those buildings, things of that nature, so that when you look and you see the buildings from above the wall, they're much more enhanced. They'll also need to do some things with the walls to make them more cohesive with the existing Canyon Trails community, so you don't have, for example, a gray wall sticking out in the middle of an established master plan community. And again, there will be an 8-foot path installed along Cotton Lane that will connect down to Van Buren Street, so that ultimately when these developments are built out, there's a solid 8-foot trail that will go from the RID on the north to the Canyon Trails Town Center for people to walk there, and then to points further south. At the neighborhood meeting, residents did voice concerns about the additional housing density along the 303 throughout Canyon Trails. It is also my understanding that since that meeting, the applicant has agreed verbally with the resident to add trees to the Canyon Trails greenbelt that will remain if the HOA is to accept those trees to be installed. Staff has evaluated the impacts of the minor general plan amendment and the proposed zoning to the greater community, and with no major concerns being found based on our zoning criteria, staff recommends you approve the minor amendment to the general plan and land use and transportation plan, and subsequently also approve the rezoning of the property from the Canyon Trails Phase 1 planned area development with an underlying zoning of commercial to MF12 with a PAD overlay subject to the stipulations found in the staff report. The applicant is here. They do not have a formal presentation, but they are available for questions, and I'm here to answer any zoning questions you might have.
He's working his way up here, so I assume he wants something to say here, right?
Actually not, Mayor.
No?
For your record, my name is Paul Gilbert, 701 North 44th Street. You said in your preliminary comments, is the person in front of you has said something, don't repeat what they said. So I'm happy to say it's been said, and therefore I needn't repeat it, but I am available to answer any questions.
Thank you there, Mr. Hilbert.
And Mayor, there are two neighbors here that have some concerns about the project, and I'd like to reserve a rebuttal to their comments, if I might.
Okay, thank you. Any speaker cards?
Barbara McPhee.
You know,
Barbara McPhee, 16850 West Pier Street, Goodyear.
remember, as I mentioned earlier to the others, there's a clock there kind of in front
Yeah,
of
I
you. Watch it.
practiced at the zoning commission.
You did it all right. Go
I've
ahead.
been bugging him for a while.
Okay.
And can I say, Mr. Gilbert is delightful. I've so enjoyed this process, and Christian is like way and above, and I know you guys know that. But I am grateful for the opportunity to come and stand before you, Mayor, and the council, and say, I object. I object strongly to your vision. What I said before, you're boxing canyon trails in. Look at that map that was up there with the yellow and the orange and the purple. Look what you're doing to me, to my neighborhood, to my HOA. Now, I have a written speech. The reduction in setback to the requested 20 feet minimum would appear to pose no issues on the nearby properties. Mr. Gilbert and Andy and Christian, they don't know that. They can't say that. What exactly does appear to pose no issues on the nearby properties means? Can Mr. Gilbert guarantee the 20-foot setback won't affect our landscaping or landscaping in general? The tree growth, future development canyon trails may have for the area. Will there be open parking in the reduced setback area? Does this create a heated environment with no cover? Parking on the streets and canyon trails, and that's a Goodyear thing, is a major issue because of the density of the rentals and the plan for only 40% of these homes to have garages. I anticipate a large parking demand that may well affect the cul-de-sac that I live on, because they can park there. It's 75 feet, no biggie. Increased dense populations in this area with direct access to the greenway, the Canyon Trails Greenway, our dues pay for, it will increase the wear and tear on all of our Canyon Trails community. This includes graffiti. Don't tell me you don't know it's a problem. Vandalism, erosions of walking paths, trash left behind that I pick up because I'm a good neighbor. I see no benefit to my Canyon Trails community having a smaller setback against the greenway and created access to this Canyon Trails Greenway of, when they get done, 1,200 rental units. If any of you lived in Canyon Trails, I'm thinking you might be looking at this a little bit differently. Come and visit. I'll put the coffee on. Drive my neighborhood. You're all welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert.
My pleasure.
You've been wonderful. And
Thank you.
Andy. Oh, and thank you for my trees.
You're welcome.
I did win some trees out of the deal.
We got somebody else?
Brian McPhee.
Oh, Brian.
Brian?
Yes. This is 11.
I think I was only referring to 12.
They're being presented as one.
Oh, okay.
Well, he's already spoken.
You'll have comment on 12 as well, Mayor.
What's that?
You'll have comment on the next item as well.
Okay.
You want me to wait?
Well, has he commented
is
on
it for
11
this?
or on 12?
No.
wants to comment on the next
I said
item.
I had comments on item 12.
Okay.
This is 11.
This is 11,
11.
so you should wait till 12.
Yes.
Yeah, why don't you hold out till
All
12?
right, fine. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I wasn't sure whether you combined.
Yeah, no.
Neither did we.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Gilbert.
I must say it is an unmitigated pleasure to have the opposition say I'm a nice guy. It doesn't happen to me often. So, thank you, Barbara. There is some confusion concerning the setback. The setback reduction that we're requesting is for the property to the north. It isn't, her property is to the east. Christian, if you could maybe put that plan up. I think you had it before. All right, the setback we're requesting is along the northern border. Barbara and Brian live to the east, so the setback we're requesting has no effect on their property, and that's why we said that at the earlier Planning Commission hearing. Our parking meets and exceeds the city requirements, so I don't think that could be a possible issue. She's concerned about wear and tear. Well, we have no vehicular intercourse with her property to the east. There's a gate, which, by the way, we were required to put there by the staff, not criticizing you, Christian. We're cheerfully doing it. But other than that gate, which will be locked, there's no intercourse between our project and the single family immediately to the east. And then lastly, they have requested that we provide 15 trees along their Paseo Trail, which we have also agreed to do. Mayor, that concludes my remarks on this case. Thank you.
Well, with that, I guess go ahead and close the public hearing. Will the Deputy Clerk please read resolutions 2022-2234 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 2022-2234, approving a minor amendment to the Goodyear 2025 general plan to amend the land use designation of approximately 31 acres generally located at the northeast corner of Cotton Lane and Van Buren Street from business commerce to neighborhood over the approximately 31 acres, requiring an amendment to figure 8.12 land use and transportation plan map in chapter 8 of the Goodyear 2025 general plan and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Can I get a motion in a second?
Second.
Whoops. We got the second here, first there. Okay, we're good? All right, open for discussion. Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I had some clarifying questions. Just wanted to ask those real quick. So the height for these would be 25 feet with parapet. So about a 2-story?
The allowed height for the buildings is 25 feet. The parapets, if they were to do a flat roof, for example, they would be allowed an additional 5 feet of height. What this zoning case calls out is that a tiled roof that's pitched would be considered the same as a parapet. So 30 feet of height if you include the parapet, which is the same as single-family homes in Goodyear.
That'd be about a 2-story-ish height?
Correct.
Right. So
what they envision is 2 stories on the west, 1 story on the east. The zoning case does not restrict them to that, treats it like a normal MF12.
Okay, and then can you remind me the trail, are they adding more trail to the existing trail? I was trying to look at the.
Yes, so they're building,
here,
they're building a separate trail along Cotton Lane, similar to what you see in front of Target. There's a trail that runs along that. All of the zoning cases along Cotton Lane and Canyon Trails have contemplated that those developers build a section of the Canyon Trails, Cotton Lane Trail. So they will conclude that portion of the trail.
Okay, but they'll still have to go underneath the tunnel to get across the street there.
No, that trail, ultimately, when you get to Van Buren, you'd walk to the signal, cross, continue on the trail.
Okay, yeah, because I know there's a tunnels under there, so.
Correct.
Yeah, I think I jog through there every Saturday, so.
To give everyone another option.
Yeah, okay. And then the other question was, and this is really a question I had before, I already talked to Christopher in the past, but there's a lot of those burrowing owls along there, and I don't know if we have anything in our rules or environmental to relocate any burrowing owls in the city that we find. I don't know if that's a.
There's rules beyond the city that address that.
Okay, I thought so. I just want to make sure. I like those little guys. So just make sure they're taken care of. So, and then the traffic in and out of there. So it's going to be because I forget the MF level, but the project south of there to take a left turn. Because it's right against the 303. So if I want to get out of this community and take a left-hand turn, I have to take a
Going
right.
east?
Is it only a one-way, a right out, right in?
What's currently contemplated today is that it'd be a right in, right out, but they plan right now on sharing an access with the property to the north of them. So they would be able to go up to the frontage road or McDowell Road to make that eastbound movement.
Well, they're going to go through the neighborhood probably right there. But Okay, so they could go east, they need to go north some way, either through the neighborhood or through.
Or they could make a
McDowell.
U-turn. They could make a U-turn at the,
Yeah, because I take my kids along that road almost every morning, and I'm just envisioning what it'll look like in the future with a bunch of U-turns going along there. So just curious what that would feel like if I was there. So
if I'm going to Phoenix, I'd likely, though,
you're going to
make
go
a
up.
right out, go to the frontage, take that to points
you take the
east and
frontage
hop on.
to Saraville and then hop on there.
Yep. I don't want to take it by the school, so I'm not going down there.
No. Okay, and the trees, they're putting trees on their east border.
That is a commitment from the developer verbally. That is not a part of the zoning case, but their commitment to the resident is that they will, if the HOA accepts those trees, they will plant those trees.
And are they adding a trail on their side of the green belt? Because I know there's like a partial trail already along there.
A trail exists there. Their plan is to add another trail along Cotton Lane that
On the other side,
the whole community could use.
but not on the east side.
One already exists.
Okay, it's like a partial, that's what I was getting at. If I remember right, you can go down in or you can go up and then it comes right back down. So-
Correct.
Okay. I'm just curious if they were putting more concrete along there. And I think I'm a different developer that was along this route. Are they helping to provide water to that greenbelt area? Or am I thinking of,
This is
there was another one
different-
that was thinking of doing that?
Yeah, this is a different HOA. So south of this road, that HOA had a water and landscaping issue. So the agreement for the southern development was to do some improvements there because that greenbelt's in disrepair.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, it's pretty brown on that side.
This one's a little bit different of a circumstance.
Okay, I just want to verify. Okay, and we're going from, right now it's already zoned commercial.
It's currently entitled.
Entitled commercial, and we're trying to go to MF. So, okay, just making sure everybody's clear that that's what the discussion is. So, I mean, I would prefer commercial, but I don't see commercial being right in, right out, only there. So if this is the other option, then it makes, because we already have residential all around this section here. If the 303 wasn't built the way it was and there was an exit right there, that'd be a whole totally different story. Because I live in Canyon Trails myself, and there are quite a few apartment complexes around there, and I've already voted 3 times against a few of those already. So, but this one, since they already have so many there, or already have residential there, and I really don't see a gas station or anything else going there. Unless I don't think anybody, and the landlord is not going to leave it as ag. They're gonna make it residential. So, yeah. So, as long as you can help with the trees and take care of the owls and help with the routing of the people in and out of there, then that use makes sense there. So, thank you.
Councilmember Kano?
So the first item we're going to vote on is the minor general plan amendment. That's the issue at hand. And it's been interesting as we have learned about the future of the Loop 303, the impact that it's had on that whole corridor, in that much of the land that was planned for commercial, realizing that they're not going to have access. And that has changed the trajectory of how things have been developed. Historically, we have not favored putting single-family residential along freeways or high-traffic corridors. And so we have, parcel by parcel, but it's been part of a big vision that this is a transportation corridor, this is a commuting corridor, and it made sense to have multifamily. And multifamily is showing up in along that corridor, certainly along the Estrella Parkway, and also north of I-10 in the Palm Valley area. I think that we're seeing multifamily come everywhere, and there's a whole lot of reasons for that. I mean, we definitely have a housing shortage, and we want young people to be able to live here, and retirees and things like that. So there's a lot of reasons for that. But this is probably one of the few parcels that we have not yet switched over from the previously envisioned commercial, and it just makes sense to continue with what we've initiated.
Go ahead, Councilmember Campbell.
All right. The trees that he has offered that's not part of this agreement, are they going on the east side?
On the east side of the
Of the
property,
development?
I'm not privy to that. I just know that it was verbally promised that
Okay,
they
is
would.
that where the road, or not the road, is that where the trail is, though?
Yes, the trail's on the east side of their property.
And there's absolutely no entrance into her cul-de-sac from this development?
The green belt is entirely open to many points in the development, not just from here, from many places.
But can you drive a car through there?
No.
That's what I'm saying. There's no way for cars to go from this development
It'd be
into the
very,
Canyon Trails development.
be a long way
Unless they
around.
go through the fence like they do at Pebble Creek when they don't stop.
I'll shake my head.
Yeah. Say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, is this where the 303 is elevated as well?
That is correct.
Well, there we go. The 303 is what, being elevated there is what has changed the whole trajectory for us. When I moved here in 99, I'll be honest, I never heard of the 303. I never saw it. I didn't know it was coming. And I'm amazed every time something new is announced to the 303 about it being elevated and that it's going to dump into the State Route 30 and it's not going to continue around like I envisioned 202 doing and 101, but it's just so different. And what we thought would work 25 years ago is not working today. And I wished it would, and I wish it would have been better, but that wasn't our call to make. So I think, if I understand right, the height of these houses are, the units will be 2-story to the west and the north, but 1-story to the east. So there won't be any problem with folks thinking people are looking in people's backyards.
Even if the project on the east were 2 stories, it's 75 to 150 feet away from somebody's
It's too
private
far
yard.
away.
It's pretty far.
Okay. And that's probably the height of some of the homes that are in Canyon Trails right now.
Directly across from here, you have all 2 stories in that
All the same.
court home community, all the same.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Go ahead, Councilmember Lortano.
I think Councilmember Campbell asked a lot of my questions, so I think I'm pretty good. I just have so the trees I'm just not having visualized, they're going to go on the east side, right?
They would go off of this property. So the trees that are being promised they're going to approach the Canyon Trails Phase 1 HOA and say, we'd like to give you 15 trees. Will you run irrigation and we'll plant them for you to be a good neighbor?
Okay, but that's going to be on the east portion, kind of more of a.
That'll be outside of their property,
But
just
east.
east of it.
Okay.
Yep, you got it.
And these are more of, I want to say more townhomes rather than what you think of apartments. it
Their
looks like.
vision for this, so when you go down to 12 units per acre maximum, they end up being the single-family detached 3-bedroom on one building or the duplex. Their plan is that on the west side, you'd have like a 2-story townhouse product. The east side would be the more traditional Christopher Todd, Hancock type style product.
And these have garages, right? Most of
The
them.
zoning ordinance just requires that parking is met, and that can be met through surface, at least one covered, which can be completed through a garage or a carport.
Okay. Are they going to have garages? Because it looked like in the pictures.
They envision that the townhouse product would have a garage
Okay.
underneath.
He's nodding back there, I think. Okay. So I think that makes it probably a little more copacetic with that neighborhood to kind of blend it in to more single family. And then the only other question is there are 2 entrances for fire, but from what I got from your conversation with Councilmember Campbell, you still can't enter from even fire. There's other entrances. They will not be through the Canyon Trails neighborhood, correct?
So our closest fire station to here is at Yuma and Saraville. There's also a fire station planned off the map, so fire could come through here and gain access to that neighborhood here.
That's what I mean, but it'd be from other areas. It wouldn't be through the actual Canyon Trails neighborhood.
I would not envision a truck would
No
go
way.
around to go through
Okay.
there.
Okay, that's my concern, and I have to agree with what Councilmember Kano and Councilmember Campbell said about, unfortunately, the 303, how it changed there, this is not going to be commercial because you can't get in and out of it. And unfortunately, that's just not going to be. So I think for the, as Councilmember Stipp would always say, if not this, then what? And I think this is probably the best fit for their, that we have. So I think it's a nice product. So thank you.
Councilmember Stipp.
Looking for the map that shows, or the drawing that shows the elevated 303 thing that I've asked for every single time. That is not.
That's not it.
That's a great land view, but it looks flat. We've seen the elevation, and the folks in the audience have not seen the same elevation that we have seen. That the 303 is not going to come off of the I-10 and land flat at Van Buren and just become a flat highway. It's going to be elevated 28 feet. I'm looking behind you, but 28 feet, something to that effect, 20 to 28 feet. Am I close?
It's pretty high up there.
Yeah.
It's higher than the buildings will be.
Correct. So it'll be at least at the height of the building. So when we talk about has the vision changed for the area, the answer is yes, to Councilmember Campbell's point. This, I think, was originally envisioned that this was going to be a wide, flat 303 going through. That's why you've got that huge right-of-way built in the middle of canyon trails on both the east and west sides. And now through the planning and development process, through ADOT, this is going to be an elevated freeway, which is essentially going to cut this area in half. And once that elevated freeway comes up, it turns off all the commercial, all the residential. It shuts the whole thing down. And we were part victim to that and part enemy, I guess, in that regard. So I don't know that the vision changed as much as now the literal landscape is going to change. So from a general plan amendment perspective, this only makes sense because the least amount of access that we have to a parcel, the least interested a retail developer is in. And this particular parcel looks to be about 25 or 30 acres.
You got it.
So that's too big for a gas station, and it's too small with that limited access for any kind of retail to go in. So to my famous question, apparently, if not this, then what? The then what is nothing. And I would debate, unfortunately, with our resident and the statistics from the studies that were done in the early 2000s, we are not experiencing that in the city. And I, again, would ask that staff, we get these statistics and this information in about housing impacts on the rest of the community into these presentations, because we know that multifamily is not driving down our housing values in the city at all. And we have been very fortunate in that. And part of it is the design standards that we require make the developer put a larger investment, which then requires higher rent, which then brings in a higher clientele. And that's the vision of how we're going to try to maintain some control over the multifamily scenario. And as we have found in our experience, and some of us, myself included, have lived in these places, it is not the apartment complex that we all knew when we were 18, 19, 20. I've said a number of times, the place that I first lived in with my wife, I would not want my children living there today. And we are making sure that these places are not that as we go forward. So from a general plan amendment perspective, I think I have to support it.
Councilmember Ray, you okay? All right. Well, there's not much more to add after all that discussion through, to be honest with you. So at that point, go ahead and take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Next public hearing item is a rezone approximately 31 acres from Planned Area Development PAD to MF 12 for Canyon Trails Phase 1, Unit 6 South. Open the public hearing. Christian, you're back.
My presentation's already over.
Yeah. Oh, already done?
Yeah.
All right, with that, now the speaker card.
Yeah.
Mr. McPhee?
Brian McPhee, I'm still at 16850 West Pier Street. I renew my objections, prior objections, this kind of development that you're proposing. With all due respect, Councilman, you're wrong. The studies dictate, you know, I'm looking at peer-reviewed studies, you're wrong. Page 189 of that long PDF file that I was referring to before, it implies that although we've never reviewed the impact, we don't think there's any negative impact. You know, again, I don't understand how you make statements like that when you never even looked into it. You know, it doesn't mean that it isn't there. I brought this point up with the planning board, and I thought they were more or less dismissive. One of the members, it was like, who am I to have the temerity to be even asking this? My word, not his. And who's going to pay for the study, which immediately told me he wasn't listening to a word I said. I do have a report here from Mr. Gilbert, he gave me prior to the meeting, thank you. Unfortunately, and the study says that there's no impact on housing values. Unfortunately, this is not a peer-reviewed study. Worse yet, it's not a hedonic study. This is how you make these kinds of decisions and these kinds of assessments. You have to do a hedonic study. You have to break down the constituent parts of the price of the house. This is an 8-page report of a bunch of averages. It doesn't tell me a thing. Continuing on page 189, and I'll quote, the longer-term fiscal impacts include increased demands for municipal services, the cost of which may or may not be increased may be covered by the property values, tax levies, city sales tax, and shared revenues. What does that even mean? That the services, you're not getting the revenues to pay for the services? I don't understand that, or either that or I don't know how to read. I note that on page 195, there was a noise study prepared, you know, so we're concerned about these apartments and too much noise, but we don't bother studying the economic impact on the abutting property values. Again, I just don't understand. Continuing on page 193, it acknowledges that there's going to be an increase in the aerial population. Councilman, you live in the area. You know when you put these apartments in, you're going to bring in Canyon Trails. You're going to bring Garfield. You're going to bring 167th to its knees every morning and every afternoon when those schools try to get out. I mean, it's already you can't get to the 303. Already you can't get to the 10, and now we're about to make that worse. Moreover, it sounds like all we did was inform the school district that there's going to be, you know, an increase in population. Now, when I ask, well, where are all these students going to go when you consider that Copper Trails is already at capacity, the Desert Thunder is already at capacity, where are these students supposed to go to school? Oh, we're going to build another school on the other side of the 303. That's good, good planning. What's going to be the increase to the school tax when you build this $20, $30, $40 million school? That I would like to know.
Sir, your time is up.
So you're not interested at all with the facts?
I'm just saying your time is up.
Thank you for your time.
Anybody else like to speak in the audience? Closed public hearing. Will the Deputy City Clerk please read Resolution 2022-2235 by title only?
Adopt Resolution Number 2022-2235, declaring as public records those certain documents filed with the City Clerk entitled Official Supplementary Zoning Map number 21-21, and legal description.
Can I get a motion and a second to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Okay, good. Open for council discussion. Who wants to start off? Councilmember Bray, you okay? Councilmember Stipp?
Christian, the one story on the east, a two-story on the west is not part of the written requirements, is that correct?
That is correct.
So what assurances do we have that we'll stick with that?
This contemplates its MF12, so it's going to be treated just like all the other MF12s in this. The difference here is that it's not directly adjacent to single family. It's actually across from an all two-story community on the south side.
Okay. So between the privacy wall and the setback distance, we're achieving that.
We have not modified the setback on the east, so it's treated as if it were adjacent to a single family community that was the same height.
Okay. And each of these, you know, we're obviously vague in our description and some of the material that we're providing because it may or may not. I mean, it just, you know, we're walking right down the middle of the road. But from if any one of these units at $1,800 a month in rent, throughout the course, each one of those units will pay $540 in tax, plus the real estate tax that will be paid by the entire property itself. And the average homeowner in the community pays about $500 of city tax, plus or minus, depending on the value of the home. So from an economic impact perspective, we know that these multifamily units are not costing the city more to bring them in. I'm not sure if that's a question or a
What I can say is that if these are rental units, which the zoning does not state they must or have to be rental units, they will pay sales tax as you're referring to. The other benefit that they could provide is that they are now customers of, for example, the Canyon Trails Town Center, where they're going to be paying sales tax.
I'm not even talking about the indirect, because that's all indirect. They can choose to do all of their shopping in Buckeye or in Phoenix, and that's their call. But the fact that they are there as a rental, and if they convert for whatever reason to single-family ownership, then those homeowners will pay that same amount of property tax. So the cost-neutral piece of this, from that perspective, remains kind of the same. So I'm not sure that the detailed financial analysis is necessary, but I think the gentleman makes an interesting point about perhaps how we look at these things going forward in the future. I've already made all the other comments regarding this particular project, but I want to talk about retail, holy smokes, rental tax available to the city. Thanks.
Councilmember Loretano.
I appreciate it. I barely made all my comments as well. I would just like to know, I believe a couple years ago, we got some really good information from the Urban Land Institute, and I don't know if there's an updated to that we could get sent out to us. If Christopher or Christian, if you guys have seen that, or if there's been an updated report that gave a lot of information about the effect of multifamily in neighborhoods, and it had a lot of really good information. So I don't know if that report's been reissued or if there's an update to it, or if we could get even that other one sent out again, because I think that had a lot of good information.
I'll make a note. Thank you.
Councilmember Kano.
As the zoning has changed along the corridor, I think there's a great hope and expectation that the Canyon Trails Center is really going to then fulfill its destiny. There's a lot of capacity there. There's a lot of land yet to be developed, and with the density, we've got that great super target there that's a huge anchor, and things are starting to come in, but we're hopeful that this increased density is going to really help the commercial property on Yuma and the Loop 303 to come to the fruition and really be an asset to the neighborhood.
Councilmember Campbell.
Well, as you know, the city has nothing to do with the education system in the city of Goodyear. We are not in the business to tell them how to do it or what to do. They elect their own board of directors. However, when anyone comes to our city to develop, they go through a process with the school districts to tell them what they're planning, and the school districts generally have to sign off. So it's up to the school district to decide where their schools will go, what the overcrowding will do. And yes, it probably will raise our taxes, but we have no control over the school district and what they charge. So while I know you feel that perhaps this unit that's going to be built might strain all of the schools, and it may if they bring children in. But then a lot of these are professional people who are single. They do not want to own a home. They don't want to mow grass. They don't want to pay a HOA fee. They want to walk, and they want to do it easy. They don't want a car, or if they do, it's got to be electric, or they want Christian scooter to get around. And it's a whole different clientele of people that are coming to our city, and they want this type of property, and they want this type of rental property because they've got it in Scottsdale, they've got it in Chandler, they've got it in Mesa, all of those other big cities that are getting a lot more of the industrial, the Intels, the chip manufacturer companies. They just want to rent month to month, and that's all that they want to do, but they want amenities there for them to be able to use. And so this is a different type of a housing. In fact, I really hope that we as a city start building multi-generational housing, because we have a huge population now that their parents are moving in with each other, or they're getting custody of their grandchildren, and they have to move out of where they live because you can't have children that are 19 where you live. And we need a whole new housing definition for that group that is moving here to Goodyear. And we're happy to have them. Someday I may be a multi-generational person and I want a place to live. But I do understand the concern. I'm always concerned about the 3 high schools that we have because they're loaded. They built the school Canyon View way out in the middle of nowhere in a not even in Goodyear, and half of our kids are being bused out there, and that concerns me because I want all of our kids here in our city. But we, like I say, we have no say-so in it whatsoever. I wish we did, but we don't.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I already made a lot of the same comments. I do appreciate Brian and Barbara coming up and talking about Canyon Trails, because like I said, I live there as well, and there are a lot more houses and developments coming into and around Canyon Trails. Like I said, I jog along that path every weekend. But yeah, to Bill's point and the others, the 303 has created the issue there to where we don't have there's not many best choices besides multifamily. And I'm really glad that it's only a 2-story, because I think that's probably a lot better neighbor than a garden style type 3-4 story type unit for the neighbor's sake, because it should feel like a 2-story, 1-story neighborhood. And the graduated density, I hope, up to the freeway. And I hope they can deliver the 15 trees or more, like they said they're going to. So, thank you.
Yeah, I would like to figure out if there's a way, to the gentleman's point, that the economic impact of the apartments and the pricing. I can tell you where I live, same area where Councilmember Kano lives. We got 2 major apartment complexes, and all I can tell you is my property value has probably gone up 40% over the last couple of years. So, but I would like to see if that could be kind of more effective or more deliberate from a statistical standpoint than just my neighborhood. So just give that some thought. I'm not sure how we go about doing that, but I can tell you from my experience, that's not the case. But the economic impact is, Councilmember Stipp was mentioning, at 2%, if the rent's going up to $2,000 a rent, you take that for 400 units, 500 units, and you extrapolate that out. That's a significant amount of money for the area. With that, no sense in further discussion. It's been thoroughly vetted here. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Will the Deputy City Clerk please read ordinance number 2022-15-39 by title only?
Adopt ordinance number 2022-1539, conditionally rezoning approximately 31 acres located at the northeast corner of Cotton Lane and Van Buren Street to be known as Canyon Trails Phase 1, Unit 6, from Planned Area Development PAD to the Planned Area Development PAD zoning district with an underlying zoning district of MF12 with Planned Area Development PAD overlay, amending the zoning map of the City of Goodyear, providing for non-abridgment, providing for corrections, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, providing for penalties, and directing the city clerk to record a copy of this ordinance.
Can I get a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance number 2022-1539?
So moved.
Let's see, we've got Councilmember Lorentano and Vice Mayor. Okay. With that, I guess discussion, we've thoroughly done that, correct? So with that, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Next public hearing item is a rezoning approximately 27 acres from Plan Area Development to C2 and MF24 with Ballpark Village North Development Regulations C2 and MF24 with a pad overlay. Boy, you're up again here, Christian.
I know.
Go ahead, you're up.
Christian Williams, Senior Planner, City of Goodyear.
Mayor, you need to open the public hearing.
What's that?
You need to open the public
Oh,
hearing.
excuse me. Open a public hearing. Gotcha.
All right. I'm here before you this evening with a request from William Allison, Richard Hoffman, and Stephanie Watney to conduct a rezoning on a property within the city. To remind you of the context of this within the greater Ballpark Village, I'll show you this map. Last time I was here, we chatted about this piece here. Today, we're talking about this piece right here. In the fall and summertime, you'll likely see another project come before you in the southwest corner. But today, let's talk about Ballpark Village North. The property is approximately 27 acres, and it's located in central Goodyear in Ballpark Village on the northeast corner of Estrella Parkway and Yuma Road. The property is currently zoned planned area development with an underlying zoning of hospitality, retail, and entertainment. And the property is located in the box right here on the map, right here in the middle of the city. I really like this image on the bottom left because it shows you the property again, how close it is to the ballpark, and you can see all the land that you all have recently rezoned. Zooming in a little closer, you can see that the project again is in the red, little piece of the pie over there. Parcel is just south of the post office and also a mixed-use development within Centerra called Serafina. It's a great pizza place there, by the way. North of the recently zoned Fulton Homes at Ballpark Village. It's west of a multifamily project within Centerra. One of them is called Lunaire. And it is east of a vacant city-owned parcel. And as a note, the property does not fall within the Phoenix Goodyear Airport DNL and noise area. For a little brief history on the property, in 2007, the Goodyear Ballpark in Ballpark Village was first zoned adjacent to the site. Subsequently, the ballpark was constructed. In 2008, through an ordinance, this 27 acres of property was zoned City Center Northeast Planned Area Development with the underlying designation of hospitality, retail, and entertainment. And if you'll recall, the City Hall piece of this component was moved north of the I-10. We did a general plan amendment in 2021. We removed that city center designation, made it a village center designation, and we've declared this as a business and commerce area. You saw this map earlier, so I will not rattle off all my boring facts, but here's the star on the map right here with the project we're talking about today. Again, the piece we just talked about earlier is up there. The applicant is requesting a zoning change from the PAD with an underlying zoning of hospitality, retail, and entertainment to C2 commercial on the western 9.8 acres of the site and MF24 on the 17.6 eastern acres of the site with a PAD overlay to facilitate a mixed-use horizontal multifamily and commercial development. As currently envisioned, the property will include a hotel site, some commercial retail areas, some traditional garden-style apartments on the east. The use of the PAD is justified, or PAD overlay is justified, because the typical C2 and MF24 standards don't address how we want this to be a truly mixed-use area with the master site plan and more desirable commercial uses than would typically be allowed in a normal C2 setting. So I'll briefly talk about those changes on the next slide. Highlighting a few, the proposed PAD increases the maximum density and height of the MF24 district, since the residential will be in close walking proximity to retail. Of note, the current heights allowed in this PAD, or this PAD overlay that's proposed, are between 18 and 90 feet lower than what's currently allowed there today. So let's talk about the restrictions to C2 uses. As part of the request to add density and a base to support quality retail, the developers agreed to restrict or limit certain uses and also providing the city with certainty for other uses in order to provide a high-quality mixed-use commercial and retail center or residential setting. For example, again, the desire of the developers for this to be a walkable community. So the following C2 uses are being excluded from the C2 category: adult bookstores, adult novelty stores and adult theaters, pawn shops, non-chartered financial institutions, smoke shops, convenience stores, mini storage, RV storage, automobile repair and upholstery, service stations, auto convenience uses, car washes, tire repair, oil and lube shops, and no more than one standalone drive-through. The added C2 uses, a minimum of one standalone, or maximum of one standalone drive-through if a 250 square foot patio is included with it, and additional drive-throughs so long as they are attached to a multi-tenant building or shop buildings connected via plaza, trellis, roof line. So if you think about the Dunkin' Donuts on Estrella where it came in tandem with other retail uses, or that hidden Filiberto's next to the Robex where it came in line. I didn't even know there was a drive-through for a long time. So that's what would be required if they wanted to do a standalone or additional drive-throughs. The PAD also contemplates the PAD also contemplates that if this is divided into a north-south or different subdivisions, there are some different setbacks that are allowed in the internal parcel lines. Parking is also contemplated to occur through tandem, garage, and surface parking, very similar to other mixed-use centers we have. So parking standards are created for that. Again, the caveat is they would need to provide a parking plan for those to be approved. The PAD allows for a reduction in private open space. The city has previously done that in other zoning cases in mixed-use centers. The caveat, though, is that the ground floor patios adjacent to Yuma Road, Goodyear Boulevards will have walkout opportunities, so that developer must provide at least 6 pedestrian connections to those adjacent major pedestrian connections that are required within a master site plan so that those residents on the ground floors have opportunity to walk to the adjacent Serafina shops or the adjacent retail that will be located here. Also of note, this property is within 1/4 of a mile walking distance to the Goodyear Recreation Campus. The project will also need to construct the Maricopa Trail along Yuma Road, and that will ultimately connect to the Bullard Wash. The project will also construct an 8,400 square foot plaza that will be anchored at the corner of Estrella Parkway and Yuma Road. For a little context on that size, if you've been to Park West with the splash pad area, that's a little less than 8,400 square feet. And they will increase the recreational open space on the property by up to 10%. The PAD also requires additional design enhancements for all buildings on the site. Again, the requirement for that 8,400 square foot plaza. View fencing will be required for portions of the site along the roadway or adjacent to the commercial if they are to fence it. And then at that corner with the plaza, they'll do the art component. As a reminder, I'll touch on this slide again because I know we always have questions about retail. If this project is approved, there will be over 60 acres of commercial entitled within Ballpark Village between this development and the area right around our ballpark. 53 acres at that site, about 10 acres at this site. For comparison, Westgate Core with no parking is 13 acres. Westgate with all the parking, not the city lots, that's 59 acres. Park West at 99th and Northern with the retail, not the apartments, that's 47 acres. Tanger Outlets, 37 acres. Scottsdale Quarter, 28 acres. And for any developers listening, if this is approved, we're talking about 4,200 units in Ballpark Village. We are ready for retail, and we can definitely support that. And we have an economic development team that's really happy to help you out. To date, the city has received calls and emails from residents concerning this property. To summarize the residents' concerns, they are supportive of the higher density residential, as they do want this to be a walkable area. They have some concerns with drive-throughs and the lack of those opportunities there. I will tell you, though, since the developer first proposed this, they did look at 2 standalone drive-throughs and a convenience store. Since that time, the city and them have worked collaboratively. They've agreed that that corner is not going to have a convenience store. It's going to have an 8,400 square foot plaza. They're limiting themselves to 1 standalone drive-through that will be kept on the north end of the site, and any future drive-throughs we need to come along with certainty with additional retail opportunities. Staff has evaluated the impact. Oh, they also had concerns with if adjacent future zoning cases were completely walled off with no pass-through. And they were supportive of pass-through connections in this development. Staff has evaluated the impacts of the proposed rezoning on the greater community. With no major concerns being found, staff recommends you approve the rezoning of this site to a planned area development zoning district with an underlying zoning of C2 commercial on the western 9.8 acres of the property, and an underlying zoning of MF24 on the eastern 17.6 acres of the property, with a PAD overlay entitled Ballpark Village North, Development Regulations C2 and MF24, with PAD overlay dated April 2022. Happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here but does not have a formal presentation.
Would the applicant like to speak at this time?
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Adam Bott with Morris, 2525 East Arizona, Biltmore Circle. I wish all my planners could be Christian. He's done a fantastic job. When we started this case, it's evolved quite a bit to where it is today, and I think to his credit, he's helped steer us in a direction that captured the vision and intent of a mixed-use project, particularly one that's more pedestrian-friendly than where we started with. Sometimes we think we have all the great ideas, but through the course of 6 or 8 months of a case working together, you realize there's better ways to evolve it. So with his suggestions, we've been able to make development that works and I think captures better the city's long-term vision for this area. I don't think I have anything more to add other than just I appreciate the collaboration and be happy to have your support tonight.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anyone in the audience want to speak on this? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Will the deputy clerk please read Resolution 2022-2233 by title only?
Sorry. Adopt Resolution Number 2022-2233, declaring as public records those certain documents filed with the city clerk entitled Official Supplementary Zoning Map Number 21-22, Legal Description Ballpark Village North, Legal Description Ballpark Village North C2 parcels, Legal Description Ballpark Village North MF24 parcels, and Ballpark Village North Development Regulations C2 and MF24 with PAD overlay April 2022.
Can I have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution 2022-2223? Councilmember Brand, you have it? Okay, good. Open for council discussion. Who wants to start? Councilmember Stipp?
I'm going to start with this one. Christian, from a planning perspective, what does density do for us?
From a planning perspective, density allows more customers to support retail and utilizes less space in the land.
But we don't want density everywhere from an overall planning perspective. So.
Our general plan guides where density should be located, such as this area.
Okay. The other question that was, I think, more concerning was the very long email that we received from Mr. Stark, who I understand you've had a couple of conversations with. Apparently there is a Christian Williams fan club starting. I think Mr. Stark is one of them, and obviously the attorney is the other. But he addresses a number of concerns regarding walkability and some of the changes that are happening in this particular area. Can you talk about that a little bit? I don't want to reread his email, so I'd like you to kind of talk about the conversation that you had with him, the concerns about, again, walkability and what we're doing in that area.
Sure. I'll try to summarize I'll try to summarize his comments. He has lived in Goodyear for quite some time and has always hoped that he'd have a place to walk to that felt like a downtown, if you will. So he did express some frustrations that, the area character had changed. He takes his kid on a stroller and they walk lots of places. So his desire is to see more unique restaurants and retail in the area, and he wants it to feel walkable and open. He's not a fan of gated off developments that him and his family can't walk unique and interesting ways. Some of the ways I believe that this case has started to address those is, again, with the developers agreed to put a path from Serafina through their site and master site plan that, so there are some open ways. You can somewhat see that here. So this was not originally envisioned here. Now, if you're a multifamily user here, or you're in the Fulton neighborhood, you could navigate through here as opposed to walking entirely around the development. Also, this multifamily here not being completely walled in, having view fences. He did address concerns with the future rezoning case we might see to the southwest, and if that one were to be completely gated off and not have any pedestrian pass through, he was deeply concerned about that, as he does live in that development just west of there. But he wants the city to have opportunities for unique retail, not just fast food or drive-thrus.
Thank you.
That's it. Anybody else? Over here? I'll go over here to Councilmember Kano first.
Well, this is another interesting area that is now being re-envisioned as well. There was a great plan for it, but times have changed, and but this is still a very significant corner. And as we've been approving multifamily, we've been saying, hey, is there going to be commercial? Will there be commercial? And you keep saying yes, yes. And now I think there's we're getting to the point where we've got the Ballpark Village, and we are seeing where the commercial is, and it's creating a vibe that wasn't there before. And I think that this corner is a big part of that. I'm wholeheartedly in favor of the mixed use, the retail. I'm very supportive of all the exclusions, the very specific exclusions that you have listed. I think that will help facilitate, and I think we all agree we want something more than fast food for this type of corner. And so this is really going to be a big part of just that whole ballpark community. And I think you've done a great job working with a developer to come up with an excellent plan. Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell.
Well, I was one of the original residents that wasn't happy with the ballpark to begin with. I thought it was too far from the freeway. I didn't like how it was segmented into sections and the city really didn't own anything except the stadium itself. And we were going to be dependent on everybody else to develop around it, and nobody wanted to develop around it because there was no density around it. So now we're getting density around it, and we're trying to come up with something that works. When people go to the baseball stadium, they go for entertainment, they go to eat, they go to drink, and they go to have a good time. And the way that our stadium is laid out, the practice fields are too far from where you can go. You have to park and then drive back over or be bused over to the stadium because they're not all together. The layout's kind of screwy. And so we have all this open land all around that nothing's being developed on it. And we wanted retail to come in, and we wanted shops, and we wanted restaurants, and we wanted an egg place, and we wanted Portillo's, and none of it is coming to us because I don't think we still do not have enough density there to carry that ballpark. I think this is probably the best idea, and I sympathize with the gentleman that wants to walk through all of the areas and push the kids in the strollers through it. And at one time, this was going to be pretty walkable. We were going to have a hotel, we were going to have restaurants, we were going to have dress stores, we were going to have buildings above the restaurant, so it would be kind of an urban feel, and it just hasn't happened. So I'm hopeful that this will be successful. And if it's another drive-through, it can be a high-end drive-through. It doesn't have to be a Jack in the Box or a McDonald's. I shouldn't say that because I love McDonald's, but sorry, Mr. Mellon, I love McDonald's. But truthfully, I mean, even a Portillo's, I mean, they're just a First Watch. We could put a breakfast place there. I mean, there's just so much that could go in there if we can just get the interest of the retail people to come in or the restaurant people to come in. Maybe now is not the time to be doing it either. So I just hope if this works, if this does work, it would be wonderful. It'll jumpstart that whole area.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So when you talk about how much acreage is commercial in the whole area, you said 60 acres, including just around the ballpark, right?
Right. The area entitled for retail right in the ballpark, like south of Goodyear Boulevard South, north of Lower Buckeye, that square that we have some control over and some private, that's about 53 acres. You add this site in, that's about 9.7, so total 60 acres. And then again, this ballpark village area is looking like it's going to have about 4,200 residential units, so there's the density.
Yeah. Have we done any studies on anything to what this whole area could use commercial? Like what's a healthy amount of commercial for this many, the apartment complex coming in to the southwest, to the Fulton, to all of the housing that's going on, all the other apartments that are coming along this area. I mean, I'm just wondering if that corner could sustain more commercial than, I feel like it's a repeat of I-10 and Estrella on the east side as well, with more apartment. And I'm glad they're only doing one drive-through here. I'm just curious what that looks like. So,
aside from the zoning case, I'll tell you what I'm hearing anecdotally is that we're right-sizing this area now. It seems like this developer's confident in the amount of retail they're providing. I will also say that we have the Serafina to the north. There's a lot of retail in the area, but then there's also an additional 40 acres of opportunity to the west of here. So there's some opportunity for additional retail, or if we need to support the retail that's coming in here, there's some more opportunities in vacant land for that as well.
On the city-owned site?
That's correct.
Okay. And then I appreciate the restrictions. Do you know what size, I'm just trying in my mind, one drive-through and then the future retail pads? I'm trying to understand what that would look like. I guess I'm more familiar with Roosevelt and Estrella and all those small retail pads. I'm assuming that's, but I'm not sure. I'm just curious how big that would be. What would fit in an acre or what's left there?
So Fillmore to Roosevelt, if you know that distance, that's about an eighth of a mile. We're talking about a quarter of a mile here. So this is, if this were Roosevelt, by way of example, this would be, Fillmore would be about here. So it's about the same. Roosevelt to Fillmore is about this distance.
Okay.
About a quarter mile.
Okay. I'm just, I know we're in there forever business, as the mayor says too. So I also want to make sure that, like you're saying, we are right sizing our commercial. That what does a healthy city look like with what percentage of commercial or housing diversity, housing stock? And this is because, to Councilwoman Kano's point, this is a pretty popular, very popular corner. There's tons of traffic that goes by this every day. And I also make sure that the right things are there for forever. So, okay. Okay. That's pretty much my concern, is I just want to make sure that it's enough commercials to sustain the area and that it'll be a great amenity. And I know Mr. Stark too, he's a sharp guy, so I appreciate his feedback and how you're going to make more walking paths throughout the community here. Because I used to live in that community over there, and that's why I bought there, was because of a city center that I was going to be there, and I could walk across the street to everything as well. So I appreciate you working with him to make that the whole area more walkable, and I hope that apartment complex is going to be walkable as well. So, okay, I think that clarifies my concerns. If our economic development department thinks that it's right size for that area, then I'm okay with it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you did a good job on this. Thank you, Christian. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Will the Deputy City Clerk please read ordinance 2022-1538 by title only?
Adopt ordinance number 2022-1538, conditionally rezoning approximately 27 acres of property located at the northeast corner of Estrella Parkway and Yuma Road to be known as Ballpark Village North from Planned Area Development PAD to Planned Area Development PAD zoning district with an underlying zoning district of C2 commercial with Planned Area Development PAD overlay on the western 9.8 acres and to the Planned Area Development PAD zoning district with an underlying zoning district of MF-24 multifamily with Planned Area Development PAD overlay on the eastern 17.6 acres, amending the zoning map of the city of Goodyear, providing for non-abridgment, providing for corrections, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, providing for penalties, and directing the city clerk to record a copy of this ordinance.
Can I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 2022-1538?
Second.
Did you get it? Bray, and okay. All right, open for council discussion. I think we've already done that, correct? Everybody okay? All right, with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Next public hearing item is rezoning for Camelback 303 Industrial and for Camelback and Cotton Industrial. Come on up and please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. For
Mayor.
the record, Karen Craver, Principal Planner.
Mayor Pizzolo, can you open the public hearing?
Oh, excuse me. Open public meeting.
Thank you. So this is one agenda item for two contiguous rezone sites. It's written up, though, as in one staff report, and with your indulgence, it'll be discussed in one presentation. But there will, of course, be two public hearings because there's two cases, and there'll be a reso and an ordinance for each one. Both sites are west of the 303 and on the south side of Camelback Road. Site 1 is Camelback 303 Industrial Rezone, and that's just west of Cotton. Site 2 is Camelback and Cotton Industrial Rezone, and that's right at Cotton Lane. Site 1 is 19 acres, and it was zoned C2 General Commercial with a PAD overlay in 2006 as part of the much larger planned Camelback 303 Commerce Park, none of which ever developed since 2006. Site 2 is 18 acres, and it was zoned PAD for commercial and business park uses in 2010, and that was for the planned Cotton Camel Center, also which did not develop since 2010. So the reason we thought it would be a good idea to do these two rezones in one staff report and one presentation is they're contiguous, as you saw on the aerial. They're approximately the same size. They're both requesting a rezone to I-1 light industrial park zoning. The general plan designations for business and commerce and industrial both allow for the light industrial development that they hope to do. Coincidentally, they're both represented by attorney Wendy Riddell, and they hired the same architect to come up with some conceptual site plans. This is the Site 1 conceptual site plan. Fairly small buildings for the area. They're just both a little over 150,000 square feet. They have the truck court and dock doors in the center of the site, in between the two buildings, and the vehicular parking on the outsides of the buildings. And Site 1 has access onto Camelback Road. Site 2, almost identical, just with a little smaller building, and then the smallest building to the east. But again, the truck court's in the middle, vehicular parking on the outsides of the buildings. And this one would also have access via Cotton Lane, not just on Camelback. The architectural firm provided some examples, architectural examples for us all to look at of what could be built, this size building on this size property. And I think it's, very much in keeping with the development that has already occurred in this area. Because they are, if approved, the requested light industrial park zoning will require the projects to develop to specific development standards, maximums related to the building and minimums related to the setbacks and the landscaping. They will also be required to develop to strict screening standards. And all of this is right out of the zoning ordinance because they're getting what we call hard zoning, hard I-1 zoning, and there is no PAD associated with it to request any deviations from any of those standards or development regulations. We went through the standard public participation process. We notified all the owners of property within 500 feet of the citizen review meeting, and we received no inquiries from anyone as a result of that notification. No property owners attended the April 26th citizen review meeting. And the meeting was also held for both properties. We lumped them together for that too. All the same owners were notified of the May 11th Planning Commission meeting, and for this meeting tonight, the subject properties were both posted. Legal ad appeared in the paper, and again, still no inquiries, and no one attended the commission meeting on the rezones. So upon valuation, staff finds that the rezones promote the continued orderly growth and development in conformance with the area and in conformance with our general plan, our zoning ordinance, our design guidelines, and our engineering standards. And staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission, by a vote of 6-0, are recommending approval of the rezones by the City Council. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have of me, and Wendy Riddell is here as well if you have any questions of her.
Applicant like to say anything at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Wendy Riddell with the law firm Barry Riddell, 6750 East Camelback. The only thing I'd like to do is make sure Christian doesn't get all the credit tonight for doing a great job. Karen has also done a great job, and I think given you all the relevant details here, of course, I'm happy to answer any other questions, but grateful for how she's helped us shepherd through the process here.
Thank you. Let's see, are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? Seeing none, let's close the public hearing. Will the city clerk, deputy city clerk, please read resolution 2022-2238 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 2022-2238, declaring as public records those certain documents filed with the city clerk entitled Official Supplementary Zoning Map number 21-19 and legal description of Site 1 property.
Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
I'm not sure. You got it? Okay, because I wasn't sure where it came from. All right, great. Open for council discussion. Go ahead. Councilmember Lortano.
I just want to say thank you, and thank you to the applicant, which I can't see because she's behind a pole over there. I think this is a good fit for this area, and I think it'll fit in with the growth in that area. So thank you.
Vice Mayor.
I had a question on, the maps don't show what's going on west of this. I just want to make sure, I'm sure it fits great in this area, but I just want to none of the maps showed what's directly west of it. I see the REI, the other distribution, Prologis below it, but.
Right. To the west of this is the old Able Ranch property that was purchased by Meritage Homes. What is identified as ag zoning here will be 1 acre residential lots, and the R16 property will be the rest of it.
So is the business
Single
commercial
family.
one sharing a wall with the 1 acre lots then?
There will be likely a wall along there. There will be 30 feet of landscaping and trees 20 feet on center. And the screening standards also require that the building be set back a minimum of 100 feet from the property line.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't see, it was very clear on the east side, but none of the photos showed anything on the west side, so I just I'd like to see the whole picture, I guess, when I see it, so, just in feedback, so, okay, so that'll be very similar to how we already set up south of there in the same area where we have a commercial user right up against single-family story homes there as well, it sounds like, in that same general area, closer to Indian School. Okay, and then another question I had, I assume, like every project, we're widening our portion of Camelback right there as well. I know it's hard with Camelback because Glendale owns the north side and it's very rural along that part of Camelback there, but I assume they're going to widen their side of it.
Yes, the developer
Yeah,
will
the
do
developer.
the widening and will create a turn lane into the site. They will also do improvements to Cotton for that property that's facing Cotton, and they will contribute to the signalization of the Camelback and Cotton intersection.
And I could probably read here again, but what is the business commercial, what do they foresee the uses will go there? So it's open for, I know it could be office, but I'm sure it'll be, is it more light industrial or?
It's light industrial park zoning that they are requesting, and typically what we are seeing in this area is some sort of distribution warehouse flex industrial type development.
Okay, so it could be a flex as well. It could be like Bullard and Van Buren.
It could be like these buildings here were originally
Yeah.
built, originally contemplated.
Okay, that'd be a better probably user next to the residential, it sounds like, so, okay.
And as I showed you, the buildings that fit on these parcels, because these parcels are so small, are much smaller buildings than what you see elsewhere up here in this area.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm supportive of it. I was just curious. I'd like to see the whole picture, make sure what's all around it, so, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Kano.
I wanted to say, Vice Mayor, thanks for asking that question, was to the west, because I do recall from the Able Ranch discussions that the 1 acre was intended to be a buffer because we foresaw there would be light industrial or something there. So I think we're really fortunate that they're smaller buildings than what could have possibly emerged. I just wanted to make a comment that when you drive up north on 303 and once you pass Camelback, there's a definite change in how those industrial buildings look. And I think Goodyear's done a great job. And so even though this property isn't on the 303, just maintain that high quality architecture theme that we've been going, because I can tell the difference.
Councilmember Campbell.
You answered the questions that I had regarding the road improvements, the traffic light, and if there had been a traffic study, and we want to make sure that there's no half roads left. So we don't want to have to deal with that again. And I do appreciate the conceptual colors and accents that were shown. I'm going to hold Wendy to them because you're showing me a picture and it looks like there's red accents or brick or something, and it's really going to be an attractive building. No brown, gray, blue, gray, none of that. Please.
Councilmember Stipp.
I was hoping to be the first, but I apparently have to be the second person to join the Karen Craver fan club, so. I don't want you to be left out either, but Wendy beat me to it.
Councilmember Bray, you okay?
On record, I joined it a long time ago.
I see.
Anyone else? Yay.
No, the only thing I want to echo is with Councilmember Kano, I really appreciate the architectural design of that 303. Let's keep that same pace because you can see a difference. And I hate to tout our own, but you guys do a very good job of making sure we got that high quality, so thank you. With that, I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Ayes have it. Will the deputy city clerk please read ordinance number 2022-1541, title only?
Adopt ordinance number 2022-1541, conditionally rezoning approximately 18.53 acres located on the south side of Camelback Road, west of Cotton Lane, from the C2 General Commercial Zoning District with a planned area development PAD overlay to the I-1 Light Industrial Park Zoning District, providing for non-abridgment, corrections, severability, an effective date, penalties, and directing the city clerk to record a copy of this ordinance.
Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
We good? Okay. Open for council discussion. I guess we thoroughly discussed that. We okay? With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Will the deputy city clerk please read resolution 2022-2239 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 2022-2239, declaring as public records those certain documents filed with the city clerk entitled Official Supplementary Zoning Map number 22-01 and legal description of Site 2 property.
Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
We good? All right. With that, open council discussion. I guess we're done there, right? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Will the deputy city clerk please read ordinance number 2022-1542 by title only?
Adopt ordinance number 2022-1542, conditionally rezoning approximately 17.91 acres located at the southwest corner of Camelback Road and Cotton Lane from the final planned area development PAD zoning district to the I-1 Light Industrial Zoning District, providing for non-abridgment, corrections, severability, an effective date, penalties, and directing the city clerk to record a copy of this ordinance.
Can I get a motion in a second? Yeah. Open for council discussion. I guess we're all vented, right? With that, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Next is business. How about a 10-minute break? Everybody okay with that? 10-minute break.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and start again. The mics are on. First business, I would like to remind council to wait for the motion and a second for discussion. First item on the business is adoption of the fiscal year 2023 tentative budget and setting of the public hearing. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ryan Biddle, the Finance Manager of Budget and Research here at the City of Goodyear, and I'm here to present the fiscal year 2023 tentative budget. This is an overview of our presentation, which I don't anticipate taking very long, at least not as long as my previous presentations. The majority of my focus will be on this first bullet point tonight. We met in April for two separate meetings, two separate work sessions where we discussed the city manager's recommended budget in depth. So this first bullet point and the focus of my presentation will be what changed from then until now. After we complete that, we will go into our resource overview and expenditure overview. This is our typical where does the money come from, where does the money go, something that council has heard probably 4 or 5 times now from me at this point through the budget process. And then finally, we'll conclude with adoption and next steps. So our tentative budget is coming in at $650.4 million. You can see that on the bottom right of the screen in front of you. That is $170 million higher than our city manager's recommended budget, which was presented to council in April, and you can see that number in the top right of the screen in front of you. So at first glance, I know that appears to be a big number. However, I do want to emphasize that the majority of these changes are routine adjustments made every year at this time between city manager and tentative budget presentations. That $170 million can be broken down into 12 distinct changes, which I will walk through with you right now. If you look at the first 2 rows, lines 1 and 2, those make up 78% of the changes from our city manager's recommended budget, and they're related to carryovers, both CIP carryovers and non-CIP carryovers. The details behind these were included in your tentative budget book that was delivered to you last week and can be found on pages 10 and 11, just in case you happen to have those in front of you right now. Both of those were not included in our city manager's recommended budget again, nor should they have been, because at that point in time, those dollars were programmed and funded in fiscal year 2022. Since that time, those numbers are basically jumping from 22 over to 2023. To be clear, there is no change to the project budgets themselves. Just the timing of the expenditures is the only thing that is changing. And we do have a few additional slides that will go over some of the bigger buckets here, specifically the carryovers and our contingency. If we look at, I'd like to group again then lines 3 through 5. These are action items that came directly out of our April council work sessions. So number 3 up there, Fire Supplemental Battalion and Captain BSO. So our original request was for 2 FTEs, 1 battalion chief and 1 captain. After council discussion, there was a recommendation to add 2 additional shifts or 4 additional FTEs for 6 FTEs in total, which will give 24-hour coverage. The second request that came out of that meeting was a fire supplemental related to our residential lockbox program. So $10,000 has been added to the budget. That is enough to fund 200 lockboxes. The majority of these lockboxes, the citizens pay for themselves, but this gives us the ability to fund lockboxes for those who might not have the means to do so themselves. And the last supplemental that came out was a street sweeping position, both a street sweeper, 1 FTE, and an additional street sweeping machine. Number 6 we have on there. Number 6 is an administrative change internally. So we originally presented a network engineer to council. We'd like to repurpose that or request it be a business application analyst. So network engineer, both of these are growth-related positions. The network engineer was more of a city-wide scope, dealing with firewalls, internet security infrastructure. The business application analyst is more specifically focused on city software and programs, so has a little more narrow focus in what they're doing. But because of the additional software programs that we're adding, it made more sense to use that. The $4,900 you're seeing there is just the difference in the positions. between what was presented and what we have in there now. Number 7, our state shared revenues. So we got updated estimates from the League of Arizona Cities and Towns. All 4 of our state shared revenue buckets increased. That's our income tax, state shared income tax, vehicle license tax, state sales tax, and our HERF. Over half of that was from our income tax bucket. And we had questions on that because it seemed like a large increase. So we reached back out, and the explanation that we got was in 2020, so we received these funds 2 years in arrears. So in 2020, due to COVID, there was a filing extension, and that allowed people to file their taxes, pushed it from April 2020 to July 2020. A lot of people took advantage of that, paid their taxes in July of 2020, which made it a 2021 collections. Therefore, 2 years later, in fiscal year 2023, we're seeing that spike. So it's just the timing of when people were paying their taxes. We expect that number to go down next year, at least relative to what we're seeing now, purely timing this, so this is a one-off situation. Items number 8 and 9 are CIP projects related. We had a big discussion on CIP and the timing of projects, and even after a couple months, some of those can be dated. So these are just additional dollars related to contracts and pricing that we've gotten back. And number 9, this is the other big buckets. Number 10, this is our unallocated fund balance. So anything that is not specifically programmed in fiscal year 2023, we either put into a contingency line item or into our CIP reserves bucket. The majority of those $37 million, about $36 million of that went into our CIP reserves bucket. And what that purpose is any dollars that we have or any projects that we have funded in future years of our 5-year CIP, if we have the resources and have the means to want to pull those forward, those are dollars that we would specifically use to expedite those projects in 23 as opposed to the years that they're currently programmed. We could also use those funds if need be to cover increases to current projects in fiscal year 2023, such as the ones that you've seen in line 8 and 9 right there, if we so choose to. I just want to point out any use of contingencies or CIP reserves do have to get council approval, so you'll be made aware of any use of those funds. Item number 11 was a CIP project related to our Bullard wash around Pebble Creek. So we had discussion in April about whether this project was necessary or not. So what we did is we kept it in the CIP, but we moved it out to fiscal year 2024. In the meantime, we will monitor if anything occurs out there and to see if that was needed. We'll bring it up in discussion next year if we feel like it still needs to move forward, and we'll go from there. But as of right now, it is not funded in fiscal year 2023 any longer. And last but not least, there is a city schedule adjustment. It's purely administrative in nature. It does not impact our cash position nor anything operational that we're doing. But all those combined walk you through from what we presented at our city manager's recommended budget to what is in the budget, tentative budget tonight, at $650 million. So going into a little bit more detail of the $120 million carryover, these are some of the big projects that they relate to. So Camelback Road, council is very well aware of that project. Police Building Phase 2, which is just to the south of us here. Fire Station 188 at Citrus and Yuma that we will begin construction on. Be quite a the ways through that in fiscal year 2023. Civic Square, so that one is still on schedule, but I do want, this is a good example of how the carryover process works. So we go to the departments at about a couple weeks ago, we did and said, do you believe you're going to expend everything in the current year or in the next fiscal year? They tell us, so we moved $10 million for Civic Square. The completion is going to be done, but we might pay some bills going into next year. There is part of the new fiscal year 2023 process where we do a carryover reconciliation, so to speak. So just because we move the dollars into 23, it's purely a paper exercise right now. That does not mean we're stopping spending, stopping construction on any projects that we currently have moving. So if, for example, we were to spend $8 million of that 10 in this year, during that reconciliation process, we would reduce that 10 to 2, so not to double count it year over year. A couple other projects listed on there, but then there's 56, I guess, that kind of fall into the other bucket because they are all, if you were to average that out, less than $1 million. A lot of resources for all of these projects, but the majority of them fall into the 5 or 6 that you can see above. For non-CIP carryovers, we called out specifically these COVID response funds. Similar situation. There were supplementals that are using some of these COVID response funds, so we will make sure and reconcile those out during the carryover adjustment process. Vehicles and equipment, several departments, PD, fire, public works, parks, all had at least one vehicle that we had not received yet and paid for. That's included in that $3.4 million. There's also personal protective equipment in there for fire, and a lot of asset management, so just replacement items that we're waiting on that we will get funded and paid for in fiscal year 2023. Staffing and studies, we have general planned update dollars that are spanning multiple years, public safety training facilities study, and the other dollars are pretty immaterial compared to what we're looking at with our budget. So changes from city manager's recommended as it relates to contingencies. So you can see recommended in column 2 there versus tentative tonight. There's only 2 rows that change. The first is our general fund policy reserve, which is 15% of our ongoing revenue because our state shared revenues increased. We also increased our contingency related to those ongoing revenues accordingly. So that went from $22.1 million to $23.4 million. The other bucket that changed was our CIP reserves, which we spoke about as well. That will allow us to expedite future year CIP projects if we so choose. But that is the high level of what changed between our city manager's recommended budget and tonight. I want to pause here just for a second to make sure that if there are any questions, I can answer them.
Any questions at this point? Go ahead.
Ryan, thanks for the great summary. I appreciate that. On the CIP carryover, I think it's the previous slide. Nope. One more. No, go all the way to the end. No, it's the one after this one. 30, sorry. Yeah, 30, that's right, 36.3 million CIP reserves. Starting in FY23, those are one-time use funds and are not indicative of $36 million of, I'm going to say free-for-all added to, it's one time.
That is correct, yes.
So with that, as we get ready to approve the tentative budget, I did the last meeting over the phone, appreciated everyone paying attention to my rant, certainly about the street sweeper, but I have said multiple times I was really only kidding that night, but obviously if you've been around me any period of time, you knew how year after year after year I kid about it. So I appreciate that we're actually doing that and that we've, we're holding back some, we're moving forward on others, and I am finally very happy to be at a point where I will vote in favor of the budget for the first time in quite some time. So we finally reached what I thought is the point where we needed to be, which is holding some back and moving some forward. So I appreciate everyone putting up with that over the years.
Hold on, Vice Mayor, go ahead.
I appreciate all the hard work. I know this is a long process, but a couple of quick questions. The fire station 188, you said that will be, is it out of design and it'll be dirt moving, getting built in 2022?
So we're going through, I believe in April we were talking about that there was still some movement with that project, and there still is some as late as a couple hours ago, actually. They're still discussing it. It has to do with RID projects in the well on what is the best route to move forward. We should have some idea of exactly how we want to move forward, I would like to think in the next week or so, and that will determine exactly when dirt starts moving based on the path we choose to go.
Yeah, that's obviously an important, they're all important projects, but that's an important one too. And then the street sweepers, I'm okay with it. I'm just curious in the future if they'll be self-driving. I don't know if we keep looking at those in the future, what that looks like.
That sounds wonderful. I want that job. So.
Yeah, just having a self-driving one. I mean, just go. I see that technology go in that route. So, not saying I don't want to fire anybody, but I'm just saying I want to continue to look at technology uses for anything that we have around the city. So.
I will say that we have definitely looked into some of the technology. We have GPS ability on those to track routes and monitor progress, so we can see which parts of the cities need more attention than others. Yeah. We've also learned that there are different types of street sweeping machines that serve different purposes that can be more efficient or less efficient in different situations. So there's been a lot. Councilmember Stipp's recommendation has provoked a lot of conversation, and personally, I appreciate that. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Member Loretano.
First of all, thank you both for all your hard work and everything. It's a good overview with regard to the street. I almost called it a Zamboni. The street sweeper. I've had people comment just when we did the Kids to Park Day. I was talking to some people from California who mentioned how clean it is. So I think that's important that we keep the city clean and how new it all looks. So I think that is something you don't think about that's a need, but really is a need. And I think sometimes we don't realize the needs are there. When we do this, the budget and everything, I know the legislature is still out meeting with the rental tax. Have we had an update on that, or what would be the potential loss on that?
I have not heard of an update. Do you have, Doug, by chance, know any actual numbers impact to the budget that might have? I know as soon as we do hear something, we would.
Oh, it's coming up. Hold on.
Hi, Mayor, Councilmember Loretano, Jenna Carrico, Government Relations. Of course, nothing is a done deal until we sine die the legislative session, but at this point in time, we feel very confident that the rental tax will not be moving forward.
That is good to hear. Thank you very much. And I see the numbers. Councilmember Stipp pointed out where it was on our addendum. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Yes.
A follow-up, basically, from Vice Mayor Hampton's question. If this fire station construction is delayed, pushing us farther out, we have had this discussion about not hiring these folks right away or using them to offset all of the overtime with these 12 or 15 extra bodies. I'm hoping that we'll take advantage of this delay. I don't know who to look at, but instead of putting the company in service early, we use it to offset our overtime and as a cost savings, and it gives us a real life what would happen if we hired 15 extra firefighters? Would we actually have an impact on the overtime? And I'm not talking about the built-in overtime, just the general. So I'd like to, if this project is that far delayed, and I know we've got the plans to hire these folks, I'd like to see where everybody else sits on this.
Okay. Yeah, I guess noted by the manager, I assume? I can't, yep. Is what the Councilmember Stipp mentioned, is that for the fire, is the fire chief? Is
that in the plan?
Yeah, so we've been reviewing that operational, possibility, but we've not yet landed on a definitive plan.
Okay, I'd really like the council to kind of be looped in on that. It's a huge amount of money and a huge opportunity, and now that we're delayed, I'm done.
Is there anything I could share or provide information on to that point?
Say that again?
I think the hangup is the Roosevelt Irrigation District.
I don't care what the hangup is. The whole point is if we're not moving in and we hire everybody on July 1st.
But if we get the Roosevelt done, then we're on schedule and we're ready to go here. So.
But he's talking about what if.
Well, we can what if ourselves to death too.
Mayor, Council, if I may, we are deep in the planning process for 188, and there are significant challenges with the site that I believe that we can overcome. Core and our architect, Perlman, are dedicated towards meeting the goal And that goal is the station opening in late summer of next year. We're anticipating August of 23, that station would be open and serviceable.
So August of 20, so here, let me reframe my question. August of 23, when do we intend to hire the people for that station?
January.
Right now, right?
Yeah, they are slotted to come on board July 11th. They would go to the academy in September and graduate in December.
Okay, so we would have between December and August extra firefighters in the stations.
If we do not staff Engine 188,
There you
we
go.
would have 5 extra bodies per shift. Keep in mind that we do have staffing for 187 moving forward, and also the battalion that you could offset some of those positions with as well.
So
But, sir, I'd like to address your statement in regards.
Yeah, that's my statement is, these folks come out of the academy, we will have at least 6 months of 5 extra people per shift that could offset the amount of overtime that we have. We don't need to stand up the extra engine company until the station comes, before the station comes on board. We'd at least have some form of information that drives us to, do we need to hire more to bring the overtime down? Because we are wearing out our firefighters with the amount of mandatory overtime day in and day out. Number one. Number two, we all have seen the report. We're like $6 million a year in overtime for public safety. What can we do to bring that down? That's what I'm pushing us as a council to provide some direction to the manager to say, this is what we want to examine. If you don't want to examine it, then just say, shut up and I'll sit down. But at this point, we have an opportunity to take advantage of extra bodies that are already in the budget for us to know whether additional folks would actually help in reducing that situation. The mandatory overtime scenario in the fire department is daily. Is that not correct?
Sir, currently at the moment, our mandatory numbers are drastically down. They still occur, but they're not occurring at the rate that they once were. COVID complicated that, and a variety of other issues as well. So,
We're promoting six
I'm
battalion
just
chiefs,
trying
too.
to say we have an opportunity to take advantage of some free time. Let's run the science experiment without being detrimental to the community or the organization. That's all.
Noted? We'll look at it, right? Okay. So noted, Councilmember Stipp. Yes. All right, go ahead.
All right, we are now into the resource section of the presentation. So $731.1 million of resources. A lot of that is made up of fund balance, also our operating revenue. I just want to make it clear, our fund balance, a lot of that is restricted for use. So it's not general funds where we can spend it on anything we want. A lot of those dollars are development impact fee related, might be related to enterprise funds, CFDs. So they're set aside specifically for use that we will program when the time arises for that. Our debt on there, 4.2%, relates to a wastewater bond we plan on receiving next year. And the 2.1 other is related to the $15 million of our budget authority per financial policy. If we look at our operating revenue, which was the second biggest chunk of the pie from the previous slide, for $387.1 million, you can see it broken down. You can see that the takeaway here is that sales tax is our main funding source at over 25% of our expected revenues. That comes in at about $105 million. Enterprise is next at 16.8%. State shared revenues come after that. We just spoke about the increase in that we received. And then from there, the numbers continue to go down. If we look at our operating revenue specifically in the general fund, that sales tax figure extrapolates even more. So makes up 52.6% of our general fund dollars, gives us the flexibility to do what we need to do, make operating decisions at a city level. So it highlights the importance of those. Also worth pointing out, I guess, on there, the development agreements for 7.5%, that is related to Camelback, in case anybody was curious. So in summary, from our revenue highlights, we have a conservative 4 to 6% increase by category. That is our city sales tax, not our state sales tax. Construction sales tax is at 80%. That should say fiscal year 2022. And that is $6.1 million per council policy we've adopted for ongoing purposes. The remainder is one time. We have strong state shared revenue projections, and then our development-related revenue is programmed to cover our development-related expenditures. If we look at property taxes, our primary property tax is set at the maximum levy per council policy, and secondary is set to cover GO debt service. Overall, our primary tax levy increased from $11.7 million to $12.9 million. Truth in taxation is scheduled for our next council meeting on June 6th, and we'll go into additional detail at that time about property tax rates and levies. I do want to mention that at our budget open house on May 3rd, one of our displays had a picture of a dollar bill, and it broke down by colors. Where do your property taxes go for the average person, the average citizen in the city of Goodyear? The city of Goodyear makes up about 13% or 13 cents for every dollar that's paid in property taxes, with the majority of that, almost 60%, going to education. I believe in a future In Focus magazine where they highlight the budget, we will have a picture of that in there as well. If we move over to expenditures, the takeaway from this slide is that our budget continues to be very capital intensive. As we continue to grow, those numbers continue to stay high, and we will continue to grow as the city needs us to. $116 million of that is related to personnel, and the remainder falls into our contingency reserves, which we've talked about, debt service covering the payments from our bonds we've issued, and then services and supplies is kind of the catch-all category for everything else. Looking at that same number in a different way, just by department, you can see streets and engineering as well as public works. The departments that have the majority of the CIP dollars also take the lion's share of where the department's spend is. Public safety is made up of fire, PD, court, and legal. There's also CIP dollars related in there. Those are the three bigger buckets. Looking at the general fund, personnel makes up 34% of our general fund expenditures. If you were to take out capital, which is one time in nature, that personnel number would increase from 34% to almost 42%. So you can see the importance of the general fund and funding our ongoing personnel expenditures. This is just a different way to look at the general fund again by department. $132 million of that is operations, $76 million is CIP related, $60 million is reserves and contingencies, and the remaining $16 million relates to supplementals. If we look at our FTEs, at our city manager's recommended budget, we presented 62.04 additions. Now we're presenting 67.04. That's an increase of 5 FTEs. 4 of those related to our 2 battalion chiefs and 2 captains that we added, and the last one related to our street sweeping position. You can see on the bottom left, our 904.19 authorized FTEs are broken down by full-time, part-time, and seasonal. So the operating highlights, we believe this is a sustainable budget. It's compliant with policy. Ongoing expenditures are supported by ongoing revenues. A key going into this year will be execution of our CIP projects. We also have multiple planning efforts going forward, our general plan update, our infrastructure improvement plan, Parks and Rec master plan, as well as our transportation master plan, so we will definitely be busy. Looking at a breakdown of our CIP projects, the $627 million includes the carryovers that we started the conversation or started the presentation talking about. The largest projects in our 5-year CIP, we have our Goodyear Water Reclamation Facility expansion. That's programmed for 2027. We have about $60 million related to our Australia Bridge project, Camelback Road's up there, as well as our Bryan Disposal project. Streets and transportation projects make up $255 million, or just under 41% of our total 5-year CIP spend. If we just look at fiscal year 2023 itself, there is about just over $250 million programmed. These are some of the major projects that have dollars programmed. It's not the dollars that are actually being spent in 23, but they're the total project costs. So you can see the magnitude of those, as well as their planned completion dates. And last but not least, with that before you is Resolution 2022-2246, which adopts the fiscal year 2023 expenditure limitation budget at $650,431,700 and sets the dates of the public hearing, both on the final budget as well as truth and taxation. Tonight, you are being asked to adopt this resolution, authorizing us to complete all the required publications. And then on June 6th, we will have our public hearings and at a special meeting have the adoption of the budget. And after a few weeks, after June 6th, on June 27th, we'll come back for our property levy adoption. And that is all I have for my presentation.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? Seeing none, would the Deputy City Clerk please read Resolution 2022-22-46 by title only?
Adopt Resolution Number 2022-2246, adopting the fiscal year 2022 through 2023 estimates of revenues and expenses for the City of Goodyear, including estimated property tax levy and property tax rates as the tentative budget for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023, setting forth the receipts and the amounts estimated as collectible for the previous fiscal year, the amount proposed to be raised by direct property taxation for the various purposes, giving notice of the time for hearing taxpayers for adoption of budget and setting the tax levies.
Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, open for discussion. Go ahead.
Great job by the staff. I think it's a well put together, well thought out budget. The only concern I have, and that's why the papers are in front of everybody tonight, is that I think we did a great job looking at expenses. I think we set ourselves up well in making sure that we meet the needs of the citizens moving forward. I think that we could have spent some more time looking at the revenue side of the page and looking if there was ways to give relief to the taxpayer. Obviously, you know, I focus on the food and home consumption. I think it's becoming more and more of a reality every day, and especially once we get into the end of this year with inflation, what it's actually going to cost consumers on a regular basis. And so, look, I can read the room like the rest of you, and I know that there's not everyone supports this. I just think that we should have and could have looked deeper into the revenue side to give some tax relief to the taxpayer.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
I also appreciate the process going through this as well. And I think we do this in the focus already, but I was just curious if there's an opportunity to educate residents. You give this much in tax and you might get this much in value back from the city, and kind of like HR does with like your benefits and things like that. So I don't know what that looks like. I might be asking for the wrong thing, but to show all the services that are provided from the tax dollars that they're given. I'm hoping that the exercise shows that they get more bang for their buck, but I'm not sure if that's going to be true or not. So, but yeah, and then to address Bray's point as well. I mean, no one likes to pay taxes. So, but yeah, but we're trying to do all these great things for the citizens as well. So, yeah, that's all I have. So thank you.
Anything else? You know, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, I brought this up at the retreat and again earlier this year, and I can certainly sympathize with Councilmember Bray and the difficulty in having this conversation. I've obviously, based on my prior comments, fully support the idea of looking forward at doing something. There will always be a reason not to do it. And perhaps as I have found over the years, that at this hour, it's too late. But I think we should really be taking a very hard look at that as we prepare the next fiscal year's budget, as we get ready to roll into the next retreat, and really think we don't think it's a lot of money, and maybe it's not, but those that are trying to get from check to check, and as Councilmember Bray points out, we're going to have more of those people at the end of this calendar year than I think we anticipate. Maybe we won't, maybe we'll be wrong, but we should at least be taking a look at that aspect that we have the full control over. When you look at this list and where we sit, not everything has to go to the resident in the form of a service or a project. It can be in just the value of being sympathetic and hearing to what they have going forward. So perhaps now is not the time, but I certainly hope that we have a vigorous discussion about it for next year.
Go ahead. First of all, thank you very much for all your hard work and everyone's hard work on the budget. I think it's very important. After sitting here for 12 years, we've heard the same argument come up a lot before, as no one saw COVID and no one knew what COVID was going to do. No one saw the Great Recession where we had to cut jobs. No one saw explosive growth like this. We are so far ahead of projections. And I can tell you, I think we're very conservative with how we spend our money. We have a great financial department that looks at, we have great city leadership and great department heads that look at how we can do better with our resources that are given to us in trust by our citizens. And I think that's what's really important. I get that it's the nice thing to do. Like, I'm the one who's never going to run for anything again. I get that. And it's very nice. I have a family of 4, going to be paying for 2 colleges. I have 3 jobs. One of my jobs is teaching. So I do this in 2 other things. Our money has not gone up our hourly rate hasn't gone up for over 10 years. I'm on a contract. So I get it, doing more with less, doing more hours, working later. If I want to teach one less class at Rio and say I want some more time, well, then I got to say, for example, well, I have $1,000. I'm going to take less income in for my family. Then I have to make that choice. What debit? What am I not going to buy? So I think the conversation has to be not we're going to backfill it with some one-time monies, because this isn't a one-time revenue source. If someone wants to have that conversation, then you have to make the hard choices and say, residents, I want to give you that 2.5 back, but we're not going to have that fire station manned for another year. We're not going to be able to do that, maybe Estrella Bridge for another year, or that extra police squad that you've been asking for up in Estrella, it's going to have to wait. So those are the hard choices. And I think when we see the aggregate of a little bit here, a little bit there, I think that's what's very important. Because I know what the residents are asking me for. We want better streets. We don't want scallop streets. We want clean streets, which we now have a street sweeper, which I wouldn't have thought that we didn't have enough. But apparently that is something that will make the city quality of life better for our citizens. So I think rather than, saying, well, here's your, of your grocery bill for your food, and it doesn't go for dog food, it doesn't go for Tide, it doesn't go for toilet paper, it doesn't go for, cleaning supplies. Rather than saying, here's your little bit here and there. And again, remember, we did a license plate study several years ago. A lot of these people that are buying in Goodyear are not Goodyear residents. So there's a huge amount of people that do actually come and shop at our Target, our fancy Target, and our other stores here. Water is going to cost more for this city. Even our CIP projects, we have that same inflation that, me as a consumer is facing. Our fire trucks are paying for gas. So I think we need to look at that as the aggregate and say, are we being trustworthy with our citizens' money? Are we responsible with their money? And until someone can say, make that hard choice that I want to give up XYZ for XYZ and show me a debit matches a credit, and maybe that's just how I think of it, I just can't say, well, miraculously, we're going to have this other money that's just going to backfill, because that other money was going to go to a road, a scallop street, something there that's important to our citizens, a traffic light, which costs about $1 million now. So when we look at all that together, I really do appreciate the thought, and I think that's a very kind thought, and I think we all need to be appreciative because we're all living in that same world. We all go to the grocery store, and the bill that was $100 last week is now $200 this week. So I get it. But I think we need to be good with our finances, and I think we are good, and we're conservative. And if I thought we were wasting money and doing things ridiculously, then I would say, clearly I would say so. But I think we're doing well, and I'm going to support this budget because I think it has what our residents need. In fact, there's things I wish we could move up further, and we could get more roads done, and we could get more of those miles done and that bridge done quicker. But we don't have the money to do that now, so that's why we have the 5-year plan to get that done. So I will now be quiet, and I do appreciate it, and I respect everyone's opinion, but that's always been my soapbox, so.
I guess from a discussion, okay to move forward, but I'd like to say I appreciate all the hard work the finance and staff puts in. Like I say, it's used to do it before. I know what's involved, and I know it's a lot of work. You're dealing with a lot of numbers, and every once in a while you got to get up and walk away because that number looks a little different than what it did when you first looked at it. I understand that with spreadsheets, but I appreciate all your effort. And to Bill and Patrick's point, you know, when we have our retreats, that's something probably to explore more on. I agree with you there, Councilmember Stipp and Councilmember Bray. But with that being said, are we ready to vote on this budget? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Next item for business is authorization of expenditures in excess of $500,000 for fiscal year 2023. I guess you guys are back up again. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ryan Biddle, Finance Manager, Budget and Research. There is no presentation for this particular item. The background here, this is per Resolution 08-1255. All expenditures and budgeted funds in excess of $500,000 must obtain council approval. So what is in front of you tonight are authorizing expenditures in excess of $500,000. And the key here is that these are routine annual expenditures. So we come to you at one point at the beginning of the year. That way we don't have to piecemeal this and come every single meeting throughout the year for these routine expenditures that happen annually. They're made up of items such as utilities, fuel, insurance, landscape, maintenance, trash, things to keep the lights on and keep the city running. The details of those items was included in your council agendas. And all those items that are on there have been adjusted for what we expect to spend in fiscal year 23 versus what we spent last year in fiscal year 2022. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? With that, can I have a motion and a second to authorize fiscal year 2023 listed expenditures in excess of $500,000? Got it. Open for council discussion. Everybody okay? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Next item on business is approve a budget expenditure for design services in the amount of $2,073,000 for Camelback Road from SR 303 to 152nd Avenue. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm Hugh Biak, City Traffic Engineer, and tonight I'll be presenting the Camelback Road Design Services. Give you a short agenda, what I'll be discussing this evening. First, go through a project background. Next, go over the project design, and then closing with the recommendation. Give you a brief project background. This project began in fiscal year 2021 under the Access Management Plan, which in the end created a design concept report for Camelback Road from initially State Route 303 to Litchfield Road. It was a collaboration initially between the surrounding agencies that had responsibility or at least adjacent to the existing Camelback Road corridor. So again, just to follow up on that, it was completed in fiscal year 2021. And the recommendation out of that study was the cross-section of a major arterial, which is 3 lanes in each direction with a raised curb median. So moving forward into the project design, again, this design we're speaking of here tonight for the expenditure is for the design of Camelback Road from State Route 303 to 152nd Avenue. The estimated cost of this design is in the amount of $2,073,000. The necessity for this project is obviously, one, to design the roadway to its ultimate build-out condition, but two, so we can define the right-of-way needed for this construction. Just to follow up, is also the design duration of this is anticipated to be 18 months. And just one of the items, or a couple items of note, when it comes to land acquisition and construction, just as a note, getting a little bit ahead of the project, should it be approved this evening, is that the city funds will not be used for the land acquisition or construction outside of the Goodyear city limit. Just some quick background on that is Camelback Road isn't entirely in the city of Goodyear. When it's fully improved, I'd say approximately 2/3 to 3/4 of the roadway resides in Goodyear. The remainder of it will exist in either, or reside in either Maricopa County or the city of Glendale. And getting to the portion that is within the city of Goodyear, that cost recovery would be used for the south half of Camelback Road, and that we're also working on a joint solution with the city of Glendale for the portion of the Camelback Road that exists outside of the Goodyear city limit. So in closing, recommendation is approve expenditure in the amount of $2,073,000 for the design of Camelback Road from State Route 303 to 152nd Avenue. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? With that, can I have a motion and a second to approve an expenditure in the amount of $2,073,000 for design services for the Camelback Road Capital Improvement Program Project 42038? Do I have it?
Second.
Got it? All right, open for council discussion. Go ahead, Councilmember Ray.
Hugh, explain to me, the 2 million, that includes land acquisitions or does not include land acquisitions?
Councilmember Bray, that $2,073,000 for design only. The land acquisition is not included in this number, but the project is, again, we need the design to determine what our land acquisition needs will be. So yeah.
What's that like? It's about 3 miles of road that we're designing?
I believe that's about correct, yes.
Help me just wrap my head around how it costs $2 million to plan 3 miles of road.
Excellent question. So with the design of a roadway, what we have to look at is not just the pavement and the grading to widen the roadway. So what we have out there today is a 2-lane existing roadway. What we have to do is widen it to 6 lanes each direction, along with a median down the center, which would be raised curb. Generally, that adds an additional lane plus or minus. We'll call it a 7-lane. If we laid out 7 lanes wide, that's about the width we have to go. On top of that, not just the grading or the moving of the earth to construct the roadway on, this is a very interesting area, as in the north side of Camelback Road has an existing tailwater ditch, which currently serves the properties north of Camelback Road. So irrigation water, which then, of course, feeds into Bullard Wash. In order to widen Camelback Road, which we widen it down the center, we would have to then also relocate, or actually it ended up being Glendale or Maricopa County, or a partnership thereof, would has to relocate that drainage ditch to the north. I'm going to take a guess here, 30 to 40 feet. On top of that, relocating the drainage, we also have roadway drainage on top of that. We also have relocating existing utilities that are in the roadway, whether that be existing sewer, potentially relocate existing sewer, water, and plus we have, again, mentioned the drainage infrastructure, whether it's culverts, storm drain systems, and such. And then from there, it's any access points, plus any new traffic signal structures and such along that line as well.
So I appreciate all that, but for the $2 million, we're getting a piece of paper that tells us we have to move the drainage ditch. Because we don't actually move the drainage ditch with that money, we just get a piece of paper that tells us that, right?
Correct. It would also include all the environmental services that come with it. Obviously, there'll have to be environmental investigations that go along with that design. Sorry, I left that part out. Basically, it's going to be the plan work to determine we'll end up with a plan set in the end that determines or outlines what needs to happen in order to construct the roadway. In other words, it'll be a shovel-ready project at the conclusion of this project for design that can go to a contractor and be constructed.
And we're asking someone outside to do this service, right? It's not in-house?
Correct. It's outside. It is a consultant contract, yes.
That's all I have.
That's all. Councilmember Stipp.
Does this engineering include special signs on the eastern border of Goodyear?
It should for $2 million.
Councilmember Campbell.
So I'm assuming that the city of Goodyear is going to pay for all the design. Are we going to try to get any money back from Glendale?
Councilmember Campbell, that hasn't been determined as of yet. We're still working with Glendale on a solution to this. We don't have a final example yet, or final determination yet, but our next meeting is coming up, I believe, in July to discuss this project with Glendale.
But if we don't have agreement with Glendale, we're footing the whole bill then.
Councilmember Campbell, the design, yes. Construction, no, as we will not spend any city dollars on construction outside of the city of Glendale, in other words, past the city limit of Glendale.
Okay. Is there a traffic light at 152nd Ave? That's where the kids cross over to go to school and go under the Bullard Pass to go into the wash to get over to Millennium.
Councilmember Campbell, yes, there's two signals. So we have the one at 152nd, and then there's the one further east, which is 146th Avenue, I believe, the one that goes into Palm Valley Phase 9.
Okay, so when they do the design, are they going to take into consideration that the walkway that goes under the, into the Bullard Wash where the kids go? So the grading doesn't dump all that water on them?
Yes, Councilmember Campbell. Yeah, that would include the north side of Camelback Road in that area is not improved. I believe it's not improved in terms of sidewalk. I could be wrong. But if that sidewalk hasn't already completed, that would be a consideration of the project, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kano, you okay?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add? We all good? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Next up, item on business is to approve policy 1. Here comes Lyman up. Employee Policy Administration Acknowledgement, Policy 200. Employee Compensation, Policy 300. Employment, Policy 600. Attendance Leave Policy, Policy 700. Professional and Professional Conduct, and Policy 1000. Employee Safety and Health. Got a lot of policies there. You're up.
As well as the next item as well. So the next two items I'm going to handle in this presentation.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself for the public.
Lyman Lockett, Human Resources Director. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'm here to present policy revisions and also an ordinance change connected to the policy revisions. I'll walk through the policy changes, highlight the areas of change, and answer any questions you may have. Starting with Policy 1, our employee policy, we're adding a acknowledgement. This is a precursor to moving our policies to Power DMS, a management system for policy and procedure, to make it more accessible and to manage it. Policy 200, employee compensation. We have several policy areas of cleanup and clarification. These include adding a provision for regrading positions without a change in salary, adding a provision for monetary recognition awards, clarifying our practice with regard to response time for standby pay, how we handle employees at the maximum of the range with lump sum payments. We also are addressing our temporary employees not exceeding 2 years, so providing more flexibility and a pathway to address those issues. We're also addressing shift differential for non-sworn employees and removing some elements that are connected to fire that are already in the MOU. Under Policy 300, we're adding 2 revisions that deal with the ability to double fill positions when a resignation is given or a public safety member enters drop. This will provide the opportunity to transfer institutional knowledge and also get people through with a long pathway through academy, build our readiness earlier. There's also a provision there connected. Similarly, where we can fill positions with the approval of the tentative budget as long as there's budget availability. And that's so that we can meet academies that we would otherwise miss. Under policy 600, the attendance policy, there are several changes here as well. One, the addition of the Juneteenth holiday that was approved by council in November. We're updating the use of vacation or comp time related to disciplinary action. We are also, as a result of the compensation study, enhancing our sick leave payout to maintain our competitiveness. Payouts will start at 5 years rather than 10 years. And we're also enhancing the sick leave conversion component to allow for a conversion to retirement health savings. These revisions are only available for employees who voluntarily resign. And they're also meant to add a retention incentive and also bridge the gap and barriers for retirement and the rising cost of health care. Last two, policy 700. We are essentially updating this to address legislative changes for political activity. And we are also adding core values to our professional and personal conduct. And lastly, under policy 1000, employee safety and health, we've addressed marijuana separately from other controlled substances. And that wraps those up. In the next item under the policy 800, our merit and discipline and appeal policy, there's also an ordinance change connected with this. The ordinance update and policy establishes the scope of our merit system. It outlines positions covered and not covered by the merit system. All positions that are not covered by the merit system will be at will. Those at-will positions include directors and DCMs hired into the position after July 2020. And it also removes the mediation provision, and we'll use that on an as-needed basis. Those are the changes. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to say anything? With that, would the deputy clerk please read resolution 2022-2244 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 2022-2244, amending policy 1, employee policy, administration and acknowledgement, policy 200, employee compensation, policy 300, employment, policy 600, attendance leave policy, policy 700, professional and personal conduct, and policy 1000, employee safety and health, as an amendment to the City of Goodyear policy and administrative guidelines manual.
Open for discussion. Go ahead, Councilmember Stipp.
Mayor, you need a motion.
Oh,
Second.
there we go. It's getting late. The brain's starting to fog over. All right, go ahead, Councilmember Stipp.
You had it first, I had a second.
Okay.
Just a kind of an observation. It's very hard to read in the online stuff, but a red line version of this would have been really helpful to know what changed and what didn't change. If you're coming to us with changes, we ought to know what it was and where we're at. So that's just an observation. The specific question that I had was regarding policy 1000. What actually changed? Because I can't see it.
The change in 1000 was essentially separating marijuana out like we do alcohol. So we call it out separately, and we'll treat it like we treat alcohol from a testing perspective. So it was included with controlled substances previously.
Okay. And have we figured out how to test for that?
We are testing for it, as we always have. So there's a challenge there when marijuana shows up in the system. There is there's nothing that would indicate whether you're impaired or not. So it is a challenge, but if it's in your system, it's in your system, and we treat it like we would alcohol. So it's prohibited. It's a prohibited substance.
So I know a lot of agencies started going through kind of creating a separate policy regarding the use of recreational marijuana because it can be in your system, 35 days after use with clearly no impairment. So I just want to, if we're going to be that employer, I want to make sure that we're taking as much care as we can to do that. And the policy doesn't really address it. So if you get tested for it and you used it 35 days ago, but it's still in your system. And I thought we talked about this. I'm going to look at the attorney. I remember 2 or 3 conversations on this whole matter. I mean, it's not going to stop what we have to do tonight, but I think it's worth exploring all the way to the end of this.
It's a good point. As the HR director indicated, the difficulty with testing for marijuana is testing usually it's a urine sample, and that's testing for the metabolite, which, as you indicated, can stay 30 to plus days. So you're also going to have to be looking as a supervisor for those other symptoms of impairment as well. So you can't just rely strictly upon the drug test, but you have to couple that with observed symptoms of impairment. So I think that's the intent of the guideline change or the policy change.
Well, I thought I read, it's in the middle of that. Pre-employment for safety sensitive positions, post-accident, reasonable suspicion, which gets to what you were just talking about. The random testing required for holding a CDL, I understand that's clearly a federal issue. Whether it's legal in this state or not, the federal government does not recognize it. We're having this discussion about bus drivers, et cetera, Valley Metro, that there's that clear delineation, but it's those other pieces. I just want to make sure that we're trying to be, I'm going to say, as progressive as we can while ensuring the safety of both our residents and all of our employees, those that are using it recreationally and those that are not. So I think, forward to some future discussion on how does that turn out.
Certainly.
Councilmember Loretano.
I kind of want to follow up on that because that's a concern when we hear, I know we have talked about this before. I agree with Councilmember Stipp, it's not going to change anything tonight, but if you are operating a vehicle and you have the THC, not the carboxy, in your system, not that metabolite, but if you have that THC in your system, whether it's 30 days, you've got a DUI. So where is our liability if the legislature hasn't come back and fixed that? If we let people operate a vehicle, the bus driver then gets in an accident and is post-tested, that's technically a DUI. So I guess that's the question, is how do we test? Because if it's there and they're behind the wheel.
So from a post-accident perspective, there are guidelines that we follow. So for non-CDL drivers, non-safety sensitive, it's based on reasonable suspicion. So you have to be showing signs of impairment to lead to a drug test. But certainly if it's in your system, then we're going to react to it as such. And for our CDL positions, there's requirements that they need to meet for us to move to drug testing in a post-accident situation as well. So we do have policies outlining when we'll do drug testing. We do also random test certain positions. So there's an opportunity where something might show up in a random. But when marijuana shows up in the system without a national standard for the amount of nanograms then it becomes difficult to manage. And at present, when it's in your system, we define that as you violated policy.
I guess that's my concern, that if there could be a liability issue for the city, that if we have somebody behind the wheel gets in an accident, then we're going to get sued because technically our employee is DUI.
And in under situations.
Impairment doesn't matter. I mean, it's there.
It's there, yeah.
So I'm not sure how we fix that.
And I think we're continuing to monitor it. We're continuing to look for hopefully a national standard. We're looking at other opportunities for us to come up with some kind of standard, potentially on our own if there's not a national standard. But it is something that we're continuing to look at and manage a policy that's effective for all.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You okay? Councilmember Kano?
I have a quick question in policy 200 about standby. You require people to be able to respond in 30 minutes. Do we require people to live? Do we have residency requirement that they'd have to actually physically be within 30 minutes?
We do not. But when we place someone on standby, that is the standard. But we don't have a residency requirement for any of our employees.
Okay, because people could live across the valley, and I don't know, it's just might not be realistic, but just my past experience. Thank you.
We okay? Ready? Time to vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Now, you've already done 19, correct?
Yes.
So with that, can I go ahead and with the Deputy City Clerk read ordinance number 2022-1543 by title only?
Adopt ordinance number 2022-1543, amending Goodyear City Code Section 3-3-1, Merit System Creation and Scope, providing for corrections, severability, and an effective date.
Can I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 2022-1543?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? Can I have a motion and a second to approve policy 800 merit mediation, discipline, and appeal process as an amendment to the City of Goodyear Policy and Administration Guideline Manual?
So, second.
Did you get it? Open for discussion. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on business is a development agreement for, what's that, Lakin Park? Lakin Park?
Lakin.
Go ahead and introduce yourself to the public.
May I please have access to the Elmo? Good evening, Mayor and Council. Steve Cinto, Deputy Director of Development Engineering. Can you see the exhibit okay? All right, thank you. I'm happy to be here this evening seeking approval of a minor development agreement for the Lakin Park project. This agreement was a collaborative effort between Development Services, Public Works, the City Attorney's Office, and of course the Lakin Park team. If I can direct you to the exhibit, the subject project is located at the southeast corner of MC 85 and Cotton Lane. So MC 85 here, Cotton Lane here. Here's the Hutamaki or Old Rubbermaid building. So just south of there is the first Lakin Park building, or the Phase 1 building that's under construction, almost completed. So to summarize, this agreement is fairly straightforward. Lakin Park is seeking temporary occupancy or a TCO of the first of their buildings for their tenant. Under normal circumstances, development regulations require that utilities be 100% completed prior to the TCO, although there is currently a construction challenge with a portion of the sewer at the Union Pacific Railroad MC85 crossing just here. Due to the length of time that it will take to complete and the complexity of the final utility solution, this agreement provides the developer flexibility for an interim solution that will allow for the issuance of the TCO while also protecting the city's interests. In conclusion to my presentation, staff supports the development agreement and recommends its approval. Now I'm available for any questions.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? Seeing none, will the Deputy City Clerk please read resolution number 2022-2248 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 222248, approving the development agreement for Lincoln Park, providing authorization and direction to take actions and execute documents necessary to carry out the intent of the resolution and development agreement and providing for an effective date.
Can I get a motion and a second to adopt the resolution number 2022-2248?
Second.
Got it? Okay. Open for council discussion? Well, okay, go ahead. We'll start on this side here. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
What is the temporary solution that they're doing? Since they can't tie into our sewer, right?
Mayor, council member, good question. The temporary solution is they have constructed a sewer solution. However, it doesn't meet the minimum standards. And we have worked with them and the Public Works Department to come up with a bypass system that they will be installing that in the future will allow us to maintain it, or the Public Works Department to maintain it if needed under the railroad and under MC 85. So there is a sewer system that will work, but it doesn't meet the minimum requirements. Yeah, and therefore they're going to be installing an additional casing or pipe.
So it's currently undersized, essentially, right now, and they'll get another bypass to have more capacity.
It's sized to capacity, but it wasn't installed per the minimum requirements. So,
okay. That's fine. As long as you have a solution, I was just curious what that looked like. Because I've seen them working on that a lot. The road's been torn up for a while, so I was just curious. So as long as there's a solution and we're protecting the city, I'm okay with it. I was just really just curious. So thank you.
Councilmember Bray?
If it's not meeting the minimum requirements, but it's still going to stay in place, even though.
Good question, Councilmember. So I would describe it like this. What was installed is usable, but it's difficult to maintain if we need to maintain it. Now, it has a long life expectancy. However, for our public works to be able to maintain it, we've worked with the customer to come up with an alternate solution that will allow us to maintain it in the future if we need to, using a bypass system, essentially.
So we're agreeing to allow them to use what they put in until it breaks down?
If it does, yes.
And then we'll come in and do it right?
Hold on, you got somebody coming up.
Mayor and council, maybe I can add a little bit of clarity to this. There were two crossings built under the railway, and they're solidly built. They're perfectly built to standards, but they don't apply to our need. So they're not. We're not expecting them to break. They were solidly cased under the railway, and so if there is an incident, we cannot pull those pipes out. And so by adding a bypass, it gives us the ability of connecting another pipe if we have to in the future, adding a bypass while we do repairs, because there's other options. So the applicability of the construction doesn't work for us, but they are good quality pipes that are not expected to break, if that makes any sense. We're not taking a substandard product. We're taking a product that is the wrong applicability to what we need. Does that clear up, or?
Yeah.
They were not built up to what we approved. How about that?
Makes sense.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Can I give a layman's?
No, we still have some questions.
Wait a minute, let me go through here and see if we get that, and then I'll call you up, okay? Go ahead, Councilmember Campbell.
So this pipe, is it for water?
It's a sewer force main. Sewer.
It's what?
Sewer pipe.
Oh, a sewer pipe?
Yes.
And who built it?
The developer is constructing all the infrastructure off-site.
And so he's developing, or he's building it, and it's not up to our standards.
Yes, as Javier mentioned, it has a long life expectancy, but as far as the maintainability, it doesn't meet the minimum requirements.
Did they not know that when they started building it? Didn't we tell them what they had to have there?
We approved a plan, and it wasn't constructed to the approved plan. However, we have worked with them to come up with an option that does meet the needs of our Public Works Department to maintain it long-term.
Okay, Christopher, would you put it in plain English? I mean, this is so confusing.
I tell you, I think the applicant says he can put it in English. Do you want to give it a shot? The applicant, yeah.
But he didn't build it to our standards, so I now want to know why.
Let him give an explanation here.
Well, let me take a shot at this. We're putting a pipe. It's actually two pipes because you put one and you have to put a second one that is basically a backup in the event there's ever a problem with the first one. What you do, a casing, it's a large pipe. You drill a hole and you put it under this. And then inside of this, there's a smaller pipe, what they call the carrier pipe. The carrier pipe, a smaller pipe, is encased inside the larger pipe. It's got brackets. Every so often, there's brackets that hold it in the center. And not taking any issue with the city of Goodyear, but in most markets, what you have to do is after that's done, you come in and you put an engineered grout. You inject it to fill in that empty space between the casing and the small pipe. And the reason you do that is these things are going to be there for the next 50 years. If those brackets that are every, 14 feet, 15 feet, if those things ever break, one of those in year 40, it breaks, that pipe can then shift. And if it shifts, then you got a problem. So in most, again, not taking issue with your design standards, but in most municipalities, you're required to put this engineered anti-corrosive grout so that a bracket could never break in year 30 and that pipe shift and create a problem. So what we did, no disrespect, but it was probably the most expensive $40,000 to inject grouting because that's the way you normally do it and that's the way our guys did it. So we made a mistake. We added another step in the process, which is required because you fill that empty spot so the pipe can't ever shift in the future. So that was a mistake that we made.
Okay, so you didn't build it to our design guidelines. And now we're having to give you permission to use what you've built with no liability to us, of course.
Well, the thing is now we've agreed to come in there and put a new empty casing. We're going to spend, what is the number? I think we're escrowing $1.5 million to put an empty one that we basically cap off on either side so that now you've got the two pipes with the grouting. Really, in most markets, what you're required to do, but it's an upgrade installation. But then if you have an empty pipe there that you could use for whatever you wanted to in the future if there was an issue.
Is water going to go through there from our plant?
I'm sorry?
Is water going to go through from our plant?
Water? No, I think he's talking.
It's a sewer.
Just sewer?
Just a backup.
Sewer pipe?
Yes, ma'am. So hopefully that explains. It wasn't that we were taking any shortcuts. We're doing an upgraded installation, but it wasn't what you called for. That's the mistake that we made. Does that help?
Helps me.
Well.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Anything else?
Just, Mayor, if I may add just one other additional thing, as Steve pointed out, and our Steve and the customer Steve, it wasn't installed per the approved plans that the Development Services and Engineering approved. And so we worked with Public Works because those pipes are encased in concrete. And as they pointed out, if there's an issue, we can't pull them out of concrete. That's why there's two parallel pipes. And why this is important is because it goes under the railroad.
Yes.
Obviously, you can't, in an emergency situation, you can't just lay up another pipe over the railroad like you could on a temporary basis across a road. This is the railroad, you can't do that, which then kind of has made things a little bit more complicated.
Is there any other issue that they're going to build another pipe somewhere else and it's not going to be to our design standards? Or is this the only pipe they have to put in there?
This is the only one that goes under the railroad
Okay, for all three buildings?
for the entire Lakin project.
Okay, thank you.
We good?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody all right? Let's see, we got the motion, we got the council discussion, so ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
All right, you got one nay. All right, next up is a development agreement for Prologic Commercial Park. Go ahead.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Steve Cinto, Deputy Director of Development Engineering. This time I'm seeking approval of a development agreement for the Prologis Commerce Park. So this agreement was a collaborative effort between Economic Development, Development Services, Engineering, City Attorney's Office, and the Prologis team. So if you look at my exhibit here, the subject project is located at the northeast corner of Yuma Road and Bullard Avenue, so just south of us here. Right here is the Amazon facility, FedEx, and there's a third building under construction currently. To summarize the agreement, it can be broken down into four main terms. So the first term deals with enhanced landscaping. So Prologis installed enhanced landscaping along the Bullard frontage and is eligible for reimbursement for up to 50% of the enhanced portion of the landscaping improvements. The second term deals with traffic signals. So with the exception of what's required or their proportionate share that they're required, Prologis is eligible for reimbursement for portions of two of the traffic signals along their frontage. So the one here at Bullard and Harrison, and then the one down here at Yuma and 143rd. The third term deals with the future APS easement. So Prologis will grant APS and easement along their property boundary on the north side here on the Harrison alignment. And that easements for future 69 kV or greater above ground electrical lines, and that's to serve the existing and future substations along Bullard for Compass in the city and other data centers. This is a benefit to the city to help alleviate the need for these large power poles to bracket or to be on both sides of Bullard Avenue in the future. And the fourth final term of the development agreement deals with the potential purchase of the Yuma corner property. So down here at the corner of Yuma and Bullard. And essentially the city may purchase the Yuma corner property at fair market value subject to certain timelines and conditions. And finally, although this is not a term in the agreement, Prologis has conditioned the agreement on the city's support for the inclusion of an alternate Prologis property, which is at the northwest corner of Cotton and Minnesota within the foreign trade zone. So that resolution will be presented by Economic Development staff following this agenda item. In conclusion of my presentation, staff supports the development agreement and recommends its approval, and now I'm available for any questions.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? Seeing none, would the Deputy City Clerk please read resolution number 2022-2247 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 2022-2247, approving the development agreement for Prologis Commerce Park, providing authorization and direction to take actions and execute documents necessary to carry out the intent of the resolution and development agreement, and providing for an effective date and authorizing necessary budget amendments.
Can I get a motion and a second for resolution 2022-2247?
So moved. Second.
Good. Open for council discussion. Left side, no? We're here on the right side, we all good? All right then, let's get ready to vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Next item is support for inclusion of Prologis 303 Business Park as a magnet site within the Greater Maricopa County Foreign Trade Zone. Please introduce yourself to the public.
Absolutely. My name is Lori Gary. I'm the Economic Development Director right here for the wonderful city of Goodyear. I've not used Elmo this evening, so hopefully I will get this correct. Good evening again. The Economic Development Department this evening is proposing the support of an application for a magnet foreign trade zone site at the Prologis 303 Business Park within the Greater Maricopa Foreign Trade Zone. You will also perhaps this evening hear me say GMFTZ, and that is the acronym for Greater Maricopa Foreign Trade Zone. The item that you all approved before, this goes hand in hand with that item. The Prologis Business Park is a vacant 113-acre site located at the northwest corner of North Cotton and West Minnesota Avenue. As you can see on the map on Elmo, it is very near existing businesses in the area. Amazon, for example, is immediately south of this site. We also have REI, Dick's Sporting Goods, Ball Corporation, and Sub-Zero, and they're all located here on the east side of Cotton. The support of applications seeking foreign trade zone status within the city is a development tool that we use to support the attraction of new industrial operations that might otherwise not locate within the city. The city's commitment to support this proposed magnet site application is conditioned, as Steve Cinto mentioned, upon the adoption of the development agreement that you all just did for this particular one to become effective. There are several interesting items that go along with the support of this, and one of them is that Prologis is required to file an application with the Foreign Trade Zone Board within 2 years of the adoption of this resolution, should you all choose to adopt the resolution tonight. Also, I wanted to make you aware that the proposed magnet site and activated FTZ companies will be subject to the city's FTZ, or Foreign Trade Zone, tax policy, which you all adopted in April of 2021. This policy ensures that companies that are provided property tax benefits associated with a foreign trade zone pay high wages and also make significant capital investments, which are an asset to the city. An activated foreign trade zone site or an activated foreign trade zone company, there's a couple of benefits this provides. One of the things, obviously, is the federal benefits, which are tariffs and duties, but also that in the state of Arizona, it provides another benefit for qualified companies. Remember, they have to be qualified companies. Not every company can qualify to be an FTZ status. The state of Arizona allows the reduction of real and personal property tax assessment ratio from 18% to 5%. Property tax savings to the companies are only realized after they are activated. And this most exclusively occurs only after the company has made significant investments, which also increases the property tax base on the property. The inclusion of the Prologis 303 Business Park as a magnet FTZ site will help Goodyear become more competitive, and especially on what we call high-value projects. Staff supports the inclusion of Prologis 303 Business Park as a magnet foreign trade zone site and recommends approval. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? Will the Deputy City Clerk please read resolution number 2022-2249 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 2022-2249, conditionally supporting the application for inclusion of Prologis 303 Business Park as a magnet site with FTZ number 277 Western Maricopa, providing conditions for the city's support of the Prologis 303 Business Park Foreign Trade Zone application and an expiration date for the city's support, authorizing city staff to take actions and execute documents and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Can I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2022-2249?
So moved.
Open for council discussion. Anybody over on the left? Anybody over on the right? Oh, Vice Mayor?
So I just want to clarify too. So this is the lotus we were talking about earlier. Next to it is next to it going to be the 1 acre lots as well. Looks like that goes up to the other project we just talked about, correct?
Talking about this area
Yeah.
in here.
Yep.
And I'm going to look back at Christopher Baker.
He's behind you.
Oh,
Behind you.
Stuck
I'm
up
going to
on
look
you, stuck
back
up
at
on you.
Christopher Baker.
Yes, sir, Mayor, Council, Vice Mayor, that's correct. The 1 acre lots do abut that, the blue curvy, that's a technical term, the blue
Yep.
curvy line, yep.
And then are we, I know, if I say this right, are we projecting from economic development standard, this will be more like advanced manufacturing versus logistics? Or do we have an idea what that would look like?
The use of the property is depending on the zoning, and I believe, and again, I'm going to look at Christopher, it is a industrial zoning already, so there's not a need for a rezoning on this. So whatever is allowed in that use district will be allowed in this business park.
Okay, if I say this right, I know there was a certain incentives that we were trying not to offer certain organizations to encourage certain users. So I was just curious if this was outside of that thought process or not. So
Vice Mayor and Mayor and the rest of the council members, this particular piece of property, and should you choose to adopt this, and again, we are supporting the adoption, the proposed magnet site is subject to the foreign trade zone policy, which you all adopted in April of last year, April 2021. I believe that may be what you're referring to, and that does have certain stipulations on there to ensure that there is significant investment and encourages advanced manufacturing companies, but there are certain stipulations. It can certainly be a internet fulfillment company that's in there, but there are also certain stipulations on there. For example, in the policy that you passed, that company, should they be eligible for a foreign trade zone status within the magnet site, they would have to have a minimum of $25 million in Arizona end user sales annually in order for them to take advantage of a foreign trade zone activization. Is that what you were
that
referring
clarifies
to?
it. Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So that's the only question I had. So thank you.
Anything over on the right?
I just had a question. Why is it called Greater Maricopa County Foreign Trade Zone and not Goodyear Foreign Trade Zone? Because it's in our city.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Councilmember Campbell. The Greater Maricopa Foreign Trade Zone is actually much, much larger than the city limits. So back probably, I'm making a guess here, but well over 10 years ago, we went in with a lot of other jurisdictions to form a large organization that took into account a large geographical area within many city limits. Now, one of the benefits of a foreign trade zone is that a company has to come to ask for permission to support it from city councils. And so this is part of the process, but we would be utilizing the Greater Maricopa Foreign Trade Zone Board to send the application to. And that takes into account many, many jurisdictions because geographically it's a large area.
Do we have anyone from Goodyear on that board?
At present, we do not. One of my team members, Deputy Director Harry Paxton, was on there for many years, and he is no longer on that board.
Will they look after our interests?
We believe that the Greater Maricopa Foreign Trade Zone Board is obligated to take a look at applications based on their merits. As long as they meet the Foreign Trade Zone policies,
everyone would be eligible.
Yes, everyone would be, then it would be supported. It would only not be supported if it doesn't meet any of those Foreign Trade Zone guidelines and policies.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kano, you okay? Everybody okay? All right, with that, no further discussion. Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Guess where we're at now? The very last one. Next item on the business is to consider approving Create CIP Project 60085 for a facilities master plan, cancel Municipal Operations Center Project 60078, and authorize related budget transfers.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Javier Cedrich, Director of Public Works, and it's been a long night, so I'll try to be as succinct as possible going through this. So yes, Mayor and Council, this evening I'm here to request your approval for a new project and the cancellation of the MOC project as well as the budget transfers. Oops. So in 2015, we did some planning work which resulted in the adoption of the 2016 Facilities Master Plan. The challenge with that plan was that there was a lot of moving pieces, and essentially we didn't have a lot of options for space for City Hall. We had decided at that time that we were going to try to figure out ways of staying in City Hall. As we figure out different options, I recall us thinking, wow, what are people going to think some years from now? You know, what were they thinking? It was just really difficult to try to fit what we thought were going to be the needs for the future in this building. But there was some real value out of that exercise. We did discover some things that moved forward with some solutions. For example, there were some security improvements that were done at courts that moved forward. Calle del Pueblo identified some challenges with yard space, and we've moved ahead with some leasing of some adjacent property that's provided some solutions. There were some discussions related to the Litchfield corridor, and in our current plan, there's going to be additional discussions on buildings in those locations. And the Western Avenue work that has taken place was a result of some of the discussions that took place in 2015. So it's certainly a lot of value. But as I said, there wasn't a pivot project, and there were a lot of moving pieces. In 2022, we're looking at a different thing. With the new City Hall, a lot of options have opened. And we are proposing this facility master plan to be a platform for discussion of those options and for staff to bring recommendations to council. And then the development of course, a roadmap, the facilities master plan being a roadmap for the future of facility solutions. So we have some questions ahead. I'll start with the Litchfield corridor. What are we going to do with those properties? There's been isolated conversations and different views as to what should happen. But as I said, this would be a holistic view of facility needs or space needs in the city. So Calle del Pueblo, traffic management, the old City Hall, the former Fleet building and the impound lot that we have. And then a very controversial issue, it's former Fire Station 181. So it's bringing all those topics to one common platform. Goodyear Municipal Complex, or GMC, it's providing some solutions for those that are staying behind, not moving to City Hall, and you see the groups on the right side. So there's going to be some work moving ahead. You just tentatively approved the FY23 budget, and that budget, and actually we also have a planned project for 2024, has developed solutions for those departments that you see there. So there are some already things moving ahead to address those space needs that will be captured in this plan. The municipal, what we're calling now the Municipal Operations Center, or the 157th Avenue campus. There's some opportunities to bring what we are looking at that space as because of its location and nature of the facility, as a great place to congregate or centralize a lot of our field staff. And so with SR30 essentially coming right through our property, and bike track being in place there, and there's still some farming in the area, this would be a great opportunity for us to master plan that site and really work on the site plan as we develop solutions and really, as I said before, create that roadmap that we can build at the right time. We've got some vacant lands, and there are some potential use for those vacant lands that have already been identified. But again, it's bringing every discussion that has taken place to one document that would be supported by council would be an essential element of this plan. And then looking ahead, as I've shared with mayor and council in our conversations about water, the Rainbow Valley area, there seems to be interest by developers to move forward. So we need to start conceptualizing how it is that we're going to create perhaps satellite facilities in that area to support the city in the future. And so really identifying potential locations will give us an idea on how to work with developers when they approach us to go ahead and build. There's also some studies floating out there, like the Firehouse location study and the current study, I believe, for the creation of a public safety training facility that isn't moving ahead. And then the parks master plan also will have an impact on overall facilities. So we need to, again, bring and identify the impact of all of those things on space and bringing them all to one place. And finally, perhaps even the discussion of the new ways of working, right? And I mean by that, working remotely. How are we going to use that tool in the future for space planning? We can't ignore that it exists, and you know how useful it would be for us as we look at space solutions for the city. Some project milestones ahead. We are right. If this project gets approved, we're going to go ahead and hire a consultant off our call list. So to expedite the process, we're going to start working on the options that are ahead and then bringing them to council, bring some recommendations from staff on all of these topics. The creation of some projects, the needed projects for the next budget cycle is really important. That's why we're bringing this project, try to move expeditiously. And then finally, bringing the whole plan back to council for adoption. And so with that, I move for mayor and council to approve the creation of a CIP project, 60085 for the facilities master plan and council of municipal operations center MOC project 60078, and authorize the related budget transfers of $400,000. Thank you.
Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anyone in the audience like to speak? Can I get a motion and a second to approve the creation of a CIP project 60085 for facilities master plan, FMP, Council Municipal Operations Center, MOC project 60078, and authorize related budget transfers?
So moved.
Second. You got it? Open for council discussion. Go ahead, Councilmember Stipp.
So we're canceling one project. Does it have a dollar value?
Yeah, that project had a budget of $10 million.
Okay. Then explain to me how we're working this financially, because there's a related budget transfer. What happens to the 10 million? Are we taking the 400,000 out of that 10 million?
So I'm going to venture to answer that question. Mayor and council, my understanding, and please Doug help me if I'm wrong, that $10 million go back to fund balance, and then we transfer $400,000 from fund balance to this project.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it goes back into fund balance or the CIP contingency? Because this is CIP money that we had set aside, so.
For the sake of the budget, it'll go into fund balance, so it will not go into CIP reserves or contingency. It'll be in fund balance. We do have the ability to access that, though, through other means if needed with council approval.
And then the $400,000 budget transfer is what?
The $400,000 will come right out of that, and it'll create a new project in the general fund.
Okay.
And it'll actually be creating it in fiscal year '22, I believe, so that it can get started and then carried over into '23.
Got it. Thank you.
You okay? How about over here? Everybody okay? Question I have is, we're going to be moving out of the current city hall, correct? And that will be empty? Will that be empty when we move into the Civic Plaza?
So when we move in July out of the new city, out of the existing city hall, IT will remain there for a period of time. The design and construction of the improvements at GMC will start in FY23 when the dollars are available, and the plan is to move IT to GMC.
When would that move be? Oops, go ahead.
Can I just add on to that, Mayor and Council? So we have to create the space at GMC by some of those other departments moving to the new Civic Square before IT can be relocated into that space. So there's a couple of moving pieces.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a timeline, because at some point, we don't want a vacant building sitting there, you know, on when you do your CIP, especially when you start looking at your building. So at some point, if that's completely vacant within a year, hopefully we have a plan in place. And I don't know what your timeline is when that would be completely vacant, but a timeline in place on what we do with that building.
Discussions.
Whether we sell it, whether somebody moves in it, or whatever the case may be. I guess real estate's not as, I had a discussion with the city manager, real estate's not as high as I thought it was going to be there. We haven't done much since we bought the place, apparently, but still, it's real money, so I just don't want to see an empty building for any length of time.
Mayor and Council, yes, that would be one of the first things that we do with this plan, is bring to council some recommendations on the Litchfield corridor.
Okay. Since everybody's kind of going through that, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Do we have any comments at this time? Reports, current events, or requests for future items?
I have a short comment.
Make it short.
Okay, to our fire chief and to Station 185, the ladies, all of Pebble Creek wants to thank you for the extraordinary job you did Saturday in containing the fire that burned one of our homes to the ground and literally kept it from spreading. It was an extraordinary episode that we normally do not have in Pebble Creek, and it was the outpour of the residents thanking fire and seeing how well they're trained and how they responded and handled the entire episode was just amazing, and we just want to thank them. And this home, by the way, was on our home tour 5 years ago, so they're dear friends of mine, and it's very sad, but they did, the fire department was wonderful.
Good. Everybody okay? Just want to add one thing. I was able to visit the open house, and I came to realize that numbers is my game, not painting, as I was working on a mural. They had to cover up some of my mistakes on there, but it was a pretty good turnout. I enjoyed being there. The park thing, when I did the proclamation, was also pretty fun this weekend. So, and did you say that who's going to be out at Memorial Day? Peter Jungle's going to be back out there. So if we want Peter Jungle, let's get out there. I mean, I was out there, the first one in line when they were there prior Sunday. So we need to get out there if we want Peter Jungle. So let's show some support for that. So with that, City Manager, have anything?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to add one quick thing, clarification to our earlier Camelback Road conversation. Although that design was approved by council for just over that $2 million, I just wanted to, remind everybody that the state had contributed $8 million to that project, just because there's an awareness that this is an investment in the regional planning. And so I just wanted to clarify, although council was approving our expenditure of those dollars, it's coming out of the money that was provided to us by the legislature. So thank you.
Thank you. Next meeting will be a work session followed by a regular meeting on June 6th, 2022, beginning at 5 o'clock. No further business. Meeting is closed.